Chapter 8:11. Not managing the sect, not teaching the disciples, Jun Changshao brought Lu Wanshi to participate in the God of Cookery competition. Wasn't it to complete the epic mission of suppressing one's realm? This little brat called Qian Budwa in front of him was actually the main judge of the competition, which made him a little elated. In a martial arts competition, defeating the opponent and knocking them off the stage was considered a victory. However, it was different in a cooking competition. The key to victory was the judge, because whether the dish was delicious or not depended on the judge. Although Jun Changshao thought that Lu Wanshi had the strength to win the championship, since she met the main judge, her attitude must have changed. To be exact, whether the disciple could advance to the top 3 and win the championship, whether he could complete the epic mission, all depended on the other party. Money. He could not take it. Jun Patriarch. Qian Budwa smiled and said, "Miss Lu cooked for me, this money in spirit stones are considered service fees. Now that you are returning it to me, are you trying to bribe me? Little brat. What nonsense was that?" Jun Changshao said, "Brother Qian, you are thinking too much. I treat you as a brother, so I naturally can't take this money in spirit stones." The Purple King was speechless. The speed at which he took the money and spirit stones just now, I can't tell that you treat him as a brother at all. Jun Patriarch. Qian Budwa said, "This money and spirit stones are what Miss Lu deserves, I won't take it." Of course. He paused and said, "As this year's main judge, I will also adhere to the principle of fairness." Heh. This kid was not old, but he had the demeanor of a judge. "All right." Jun Changshao said, "Then I won't force you." Qian Budwa said, "Actually, Jun Patriarch, you don't have to worry. With the sweet and sour carp that Miss Lu made just now, advancing to the top 20 is not a problem. If it were other participants, they would definitely be overjoyed to hear the main judge's evaluation, but Jun Changshao and Lu Wanshi both frowned. Top 20. This was completely useless. To be honest. Jun Changshao said, "Since I've brought my disciples to participate in the God of Cookery tournament, I'm aiming for the championship." Qian Budwa shook his head and said, "There are many experts in this God of Cookery tournament. It will be very difficult to win the championship." Although the sweet crispy carp was amazing, the dishes made by the other contestants might not be inferior. Therefore, Qian Budwa could not judge that Lu Wanshi could get the best result. In that case, Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, "This year's God of Cookery competition is quite valuable. Very high." Qian Budwa said, "I've looked through the past records, and I can confirm that this year's God of Cookery tournament has gathered the most experts, and it's also the strongest." A trace of hesitation flashed through Lu Wanshi's eyes. The little girl was a little worried. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to win the championship and that she would disappoint the patriarch. After all, she was still a child and had not experienced a big battle. Knowing that there were many experts in this year's God of Cookery competition, it was inevitable that she lacked confidence. Little girl. Jun Changshao saw it and encouraged, "The one who can defeat you is not your opponent, but yourself. So no matter what, you must believe that you are the strongest." Lu Wanshi clenched her little fist and said, "I will work hard and not embarrass the sect. Let's go." Jun Changshao snapped his fingers and led everyone to the great sage's imperial city. "Brother Qian, what business does your family do?" "Not much business, just a few mines and real estate." "Are you interested in joining the sect of all times?" "Well, I have no plans to join a sect for now." A few days later, Jun Changshao entered the middle state and walked on the official road to the imperial city. The God of Cookery sent his disciple to participate in the God of Cookery tournament. There's no doubt that he will be the champion. That might not be the case, right? I heard that many heirs of the tournament champions are participating, and their strength might not be inferior to the God of Cookery's disciple. On the road, many martial artists were discussing. Obviously, they were also heading to the imperial city to watch the upcoming God of Cookery tournament. Although culinary arts were not mainstream in the Falling Star continent, as the noblest culinary tournament, it would still attract many people's attention. Little brother, I'm afraid you don't know, but the God of Cookery's disciple, Song Bao, made a dragon and phoenix dish in the Eastern Radiant States Culinary Arts Tournament. After it was served, there was a natural phenomenon as if a dragon and phoenix were hovering in the sky. A martial artist said. When Jun Changshao heard this, a strange expression appeared on his face. Even cooking a dish could cause a natural phenomenon. This must be Taishian hallucination. There's such a thing. The martial artists who were rushing on the road were also surprised. That person said, when the 10 judges saw the natural phenomenon, they didn't even taste it and directly gave the God of Cookery's disciple the title of champion. Cooking is not refining pills, but it can cause a natural phenomenon. This is unbelievable. It's normal. After all, during the God of Cookery tournament, the dishes made by the God of Cookery would cause a natural phenomenon. If he couldn't do it, he wouldn't be qualified to be called the God of Cookery's disciple. Patriarch. Lu Wanshi said dejectedly, I feel more and more unconfident. Don't think too much. Jun Changshao said, you're the best. Although it was undeniable that the guy called Song Bao was indeed a little amazing, his disciple had Chinese recipes and knew all kinds of cuisines. It was not impossible to win. Not to mention, culinary arts were competing in color, aroma, and taste. This kind of behavior that caused a natural phenomenon was completely gaudy and had completely deviated from the path of cooking. Great Senior Imperial City. This was Jun Changshao's second time here, so when he entered the city and saw the bustling scene, he did not show any surprise. Jun Patriarch. City Lord Han, who was standing on the city tower, said, why are you here again? The two of them were now old acquaintances. Jun Changshao smiled and said, I'm taking my disciple to participate in the God of Cookery tournament. I see. City Lord Han said, do you have a place to stay? I plan to find an inn to stay in. Jun Patriarch, if you don't mind, you can stay in my City Lord's mansion. This, all right then. City Lord Han almost fell down from the city tower. I just said it casually, and he actually agreed to it shamelessly. Don't be polite to Jun Patriarch, because this guy will definitely not be polite. City Lord's mansion, backyard. Jun Changshao walked on the path beside the fish pond and said, Jun is very satisfied with the place City Lord Han arranged. City Lord Han did not say anything. If he politely said that he had already prepared a banquet, would he be shameless enough to freeload? By the way, Jun Changshao sat in the small pavilion and said, this God of Cookery tournament has attracted a lot of attention. Does City Lord Han plan to broadcast it live? City Lord Han shook his head and said, the God of Cookery tournament is jointly organized by several families in the city. It has nothing to do with me. I see. Jun Changshao took a sip of tea and said seriously, City Lord Han, I think this is a business opportunity to make money. A business opportunity to make money? City Lord Han was confused. Jun Changshao said, in the Falling Star continent, although martial arts is the mainstream, people still have to eat, so food shows will definitely be popular. We can broadcast it live with arrays. City Lord Han's mouth twitched and said, arrays cost manpower and material resources to activate. How can we make money from it? It's simple. Jun Changshao said, attract investment. Attract investment? Let's put it this way. Jun Changshao said, we can activate the array before the tournament starts, and then vigorously promote the God of Cookery tournament to attract enough attention, and then advertise some family businesses at the appropriate time. City Lord Han almost spat out the tea in his mouth. Speaking of advertising, he suddenly remembered this kid's shameless behavior in the Dragon-Tiger battle for hegemony. City Lord. A servant came to report, the second young master of the Tang family is here to visit. Jun Changshao said with a smile, City Lord Han, if you are willing to use arrays to make money, I think young Master Tang will be willing to pay a large sum of advertising fees. Chapter 8:12. When Jun Changshao entered the great sage imperial city, Tang Ren received the news. He originally planned to take the previous house for him to continue living in, but in the end, City Lord Han was one step ahead of him. Snatch my ass. I just asked casually, and he agreed without hesitation. City Lord Han, Jun Patriarch. Tang Ren was led down to the small pavilion by a servant and bowed gracefully. Jun Changshao said, Young Master Tang came at the right time, Jun and City Lord Han have business matters to discuss with you. Oh. Tang Ren immediately became interested and said, I would like to hear the details. Jun Changshao began to explain. At this moment, he didn't seem to be a guest, but the owner of the City Lord's mansion. As for City Lord Han, he sat at the side and listened carefully. He thought to himself, this guy not only knows how to advertise, he also knows how to do business. That's how it is. After Jun Changshao finished speaking, he took a sip of tea and said, Young Master Tang, are you interested in advertising your business on the formation? Of course I'm interested. Tang Ren didn't even consider it. Previously, in the dragon and tiger battle for hegemony, Jun Changshao's crazy advertising method made him very envious. He also thought that if his own pill store could also be advertised, it would definitely attract a lot of attention. City Lord Han. Jun Changshao said, Young Master Tang has agreed, you can discuss the advertising fees. This guy's enthusiasm stemmed from 2 points. Firstly, the higher the sales of young Master Tang's pill store under the advertising effect, the more money he would get. Secondly, the God of Cookery competition would be broadcasted live. If Lu Wancher won the championship, it would also increase the Sect's reputation. To put it bluntly, as long as the projection array was activated, it would definitely be beneficial to him. City Lord Han, if you allow me to advertise Tang's pill store on the formation, this Tang is willing to pay 100,000 spirit stones as advertising fees. All right. City Lord Han readily agreed. Although it took a lot of manpower and resources to activate the projection array, it was not worth mentioning in front of 100,000 spirit stones. Not to mention, Jun Changshao had just said that they could not only recruit one person. Other business families might come to advertise, and at that time, they could also earn advertising fees from them. It was Wu Sheng. Just like that, he was slowly led astray by Jun Changshao. It was not hard to imagine that if the Dragon-Tiger battle for hegemony in the lower realm was still held in the imperial city, advertisements on the formation would definitely fly everywhere. After the advertisement was settled, Castellan Han immediately went to visit the family that was organizing the God of Cookery competition. When the family found out that Castellan was going to broadcast the competition live, they all expressed their support. After all, it could increase the popularity of the competition. Young Master Tang. Jun Changshao whispered, are there any beauties? Huh. Tang Ren was stunned and immediately understood what Jun Patriarch meant, so he said, yes. Is it a lot? 10. Too little. Tang Ren muttered to himself, is Jun Patriarch that strong? You can't even satisfy 10 beauties. How about this? Jun Changshao said, call all the beauties over, the more the better. It would be best if they could sing and dance well. All right. Tang Ren hurriedly acted. But secretly, he thought, if I find a few hundred beauties, can Jun Patriarch's body take it? I don't care. Since he liked this kind of thing, he had to satisfy it. Tang Ren was quite efficient. At dusk, hundreds of enchanting beauties all gathered outside the courtyard where Jun Changshao was temporarily staying. Castellan Han, who had just rushed back, saw this and said, Young Master Tang, why are there so many women? They are here to serve Jun Patriarch. Tang Ren smiled and said in a low voice. Castellan Han was stunned. It was normal for men to like women, but to find so many at once, wasn't he afraid that his body would collapse? Creak. The door opened, and Jun Changshao, who was dressed in white, walked out. He carefully looked at the hundreds of beautiful women and said with a smile, "Not bad, not bad." Tang Ren cupped his hands and said, "I won't disturb Jun Patriarch. This Tang will take his leave first." Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said. After Tang Ren left, Castellan Han said seriously, "Jun Patriarch can be considered young and promising. This Han hopes that he can control his private life and not harm his vitality." Apart from the crazy advertising and unauthorized hijacking of formations, he still admired this young man. "Don't worry, Castellan Han," Jun Changshao said. "Jun has always been very restrained. The system could testify. The readers could also testify." But Castellan Han didn't think so. After all, if he found a few hundred beauties at once, it would be hard to say if he could walk out of his room the next day. Since that is the case, Castellan Han said, "This Han can't say more. Beauties." Jun Changshao clapped his hands and said with a smile, "It's time to get down to business." The next day, Castellan Han woke up early to enjoy the scenery on the small path. He saw Jun Changshao sitting in the small pavilion and was surprised. "You can still wake up early after playing the whole night?" Sigh. It was good to be young. Castellan Han. Jun Changshao opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Good morning." Castellan Han smiled and said, "Jun Patriarch is so energetic today, you must have had a good time yesterday." "Don't mention it." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "I almost died of exhaustion." The corner of Castellan Han's mouth twitched. "Right." Jun Changshao said, "When does Castellan Han plan to activate the formation?" Jun Patriarch decided. "Today." "Okay." As the two were chatting, Tang Ren walked in. Seeing Jun Changshao's radiant face, he secretly admired, "He is really strong." "Young Master Tang, we have decided to activate the projection formation today to promote Tang Ji Elixir Store," Castellan Han said. Tang Ren smiled and said, "Thank you very much." Jun Changshao stood up, pointed to the green space in the distance, and said, "Let's do it here." "Here?" Castellan Han and Tang Ren were confused. Schwa. Jun Changshao walked over, and according to the method Zhen Dejuan had taught him, set up a small floating formation, and said, "Castellan Han, I have already communicated with your projection formation, you can let them activate it." "Yes." Castellan Han sent a sound transmission to the people of the array hall. Buzz. Buzz. In an instant, the projection formation in the imperial city appeared, and mirror-like light screens also appeared above the cities of the various provinces. The projection formation of the Great Sage Imperial City has been activated a little frequently recently. I have an ominous feeling. Just as the martial artists of the entire continent were discussing, sure enough, a familiar face appeared on the screen, and said with a smile, "Fellow countrymen, we meet again." At this time, there was only one word that represented the mood of the martial artists of the entire continent. The 49th God of Cookery tournament is about to begin, and the projection formation will be broadcasted live all day long. Please look forward to it. This tournament is sponsored by my Sect of All Times and Tang Ji Elixir Store. Sect of All Times, inheriting the legacy of the ancient times, is the best choice in your life. If a man wants to be strong, he must eat the treasure of kidney. Where can I buy it? Tang Ji Elixir Store. The entire continent. Next. Jun Changshao said, "Please enjoy the dance performance brought by Xingshi Tang Girl Group." Xingshi Tang Girl Group. Tang Ren and Castellan Han looked at each other, wondering what was going on. Clap. After exiting the camera, Jun Changshao clapped his hands, only to see a veiled woman walk over with graceful steps. Clap. The magically modified sound system was turned on, and a dynamic rhythm sounded. The veiled beauty danced to the beat, and as the music reached a high point, more beautiful women appeared on camera and danced. They sometimes lined up and sometimes scattered, and it was quite stunning from the light screen. Tang Ren and Castellan Han were completely dumbfounded. Advertisement can be done like this? Can it be done like this? Schwa. At the end of the song, the beauties gradually gathered together, and a long couplet appeared in their hands out of thin air. From the camera, it looked like a peacock spreading its tail. The words, Tang Ji Elixir Store, were written on the couplet. The woman standing in the center position gently removed her veil, revealing a beautiful face, and said with a sweet voice, "Welcome to Tang Ji Elixir Store to purchase elixirs." Whoosh! The light screen of all the states and counties went black in an instant. Jun Changshao made a gesture and smiled, "Thank you for your hard work, beautiful ladies." "Thank you, Castellan." Jun has recorded this scene through the projection formation, and it can be broadcasted all day long. Castellan Han and Tang Ren opened their mouths, and their expressions were very interesting. They swore that everything they saw today had completely overturned their worldview. Chapter 8:13. Jun Changshao was quite tired yesterday as he spent most of the night teaching a group of beauties how to dance. The dance he taught was different from the ones in the Falling Star continent. With the dynamic music accompaniment, it had a great visual and auditory impact. After City Lord Han and Tang Ren saw it, they were stunned for a long time. This kind of different dance, this kind of advertising method, was simply unimaginable. It was not just the two of them. After seeing a group of beauties dancing, all the warriors in the continent were dumbfounded. This kind of modern advertising method, for an ancient society, was definitely an impact on everyone's worldview. It was the same as Jun Changshao's words. Adapting to the Falling Star continent is not my character. I will let the Falling Star continent adapt to me. Using the projection array to do something that no one could think of, Jun Changshao was personally changing the world. As for whether he could change it or not, it was no longer important because he had already done it. Amazing! City Lord Han said with sincere admiration. He had to admit that Jun Changshao's way of advertising Tang Ji Elixir Store with a group of beauties was very awesome. At least he remembered it immediately. Didn't remember it? There were even recorded images. Dong dong, dong dong dong, the dynamic music was transmitted, and a group of beauties were dancing on the light screen. It began to loop endlessly and began to brainwash. Busy warriors would occasionally look up and see it. Some would even patiently watch it over and over again. Of course, some warriors might not be watching the advertisement, but simply watching the beauties dance. This kind of traditional music and dance seemed neither fish nor fowl at first glance, but after a long period of bombardment and gradually becoming a habit, the more they watched it, the more they felt it. In just one day, the advertisement of the flourishing age Tang girl group was played hundreds of times on the light screen. In the alleys of various cities, there were always young children imitating the dance in the advertisement. Some children were even learning to sing, and their singing was somewhat similar. Without a doubt, Jun Changshao's behavior was subtly changing the younger generation. When the time came, it would not be strange for them to develop into singing and dancing. On the second day of the advertisement, the effect was reflected. Many warriors would subconsciously think of Tang Ji Elixir Store when they went to purchase elixirs and would unconsciously walk in. Young Master. At night, the head shopkeeper in charge of the Imperial City's medicinal pill stores came to report, the sales volume of the inner city's medicinal pill stores has increased by about 30% compared to the past. So many. Tang Ren was overjoyed. Spending 100,000 artificial spirit stones to advertise was mainly to give face to Jun Patriarch. Now, it seemed that there was an unexpected harvest. It wasn't just the sales of the elixir stores that were increasing. After a few days of advertising bombardment, all the industries related to the Tang family's business improved to varying degrees. The Tang family was already involved in many industries. Under the impact of brainwashing, they would naturally change the consumer mindset of others. Even if it was just a small portion, the profits it brought were very substantial. During the Tang family's regular meeting, Elder Tang praised Tang Ren in front of everyone. The more he looked at this grandson of his, the more he liked him. However, the direct descendants and uncles who had ambitions for the position of patriarch became vigilant. This clansman that had been neglected in the beginning was growing at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, he had been praised by the old man in public many times, which made them feel a sense of crisis. AI. In the small pavilion in the backyard of the city lord's mansion, Tang Ren unconsciously sighed. "Young Master Tang, why are you sighing?" Jun Changshao asked. Tang Ren said bitterly, "Recently, the old man has been praising me at the family meeting." "Very good." Jun Changshao said. Tang Ren shook his head and said, "Cousin and uncle have been fighting for the position of patriarch for a long time. During this period of time, the old man has often praised me in front of others, so I will definitely be targeted by them." Jun Changshao took a sip of tea and said, "Maybe the old man is testing you to see if you can withstand the targeting of your clansmen." This. Tang Ren was stunned. Jun Changshao said, "Your old man has been in the business world for so many years, and has walked more rice than we have eaten. If he didn't have his own plans, how could he have stabilized a huge business empire?" Tang Ren was silent. Jun Changshao continued, "A real man is not afraid of any challenge. Use your actions to prove to the old man that the next patriarch will definitely be you." "But," Tang Ren said worriedly, "cousin and uncle are strong, I am afraid that they will join forces to target me." In terms of business, he boasted that he was not weaker than others in the same clan, but he was afraid that the other party would play some shady schemes. "Young Master Tang," Jun Changshao said, "Jun will always be on your side." He had expressed his position and stood on the same side. In fact, from Jun Changshao's point of view, he naturally hoped that Tang Ren could take over the position of patriarch of the Tang family. After all, it would be more convenient for them to cooperate and make money in the future. Besides, during this period of contact, the other party's performance was very good, and he was a friend worth making. If he really wanted to compete for the position of patriarch, he was willing to help as much as he could. Tang Ren cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Jun Patriarch." With the support of such a sect with unlimited potential, he suddenly had a lot of confidence. Jun Changshao said, "No need to thank me, helping young Master Tang is also helping myself." Tang Ren was startled, and then he immediately laughed. He liked this kind of open and straightforward way of speaking. Of course. Tang Ren also knew. Jun Changshao's words were telling him that if it could bring him benefits, he would definitely help to the end. The advertisements of the Golden Age Tang Girl Group were still bombarding the light screen all day, and the impact was increasing day by day. The business of the Tang family's pill shop was booming day by day. Tang Ren began to focus on expansion and strive to bloom in the mainland. Not only did he want to operate pills, but he also began to involve herbs and ores, hoping to achieve a balanced development. The Tang family's advantage was the spirit stones, but its disadvantage was the single industry. Tang Ren's goal was very simple, to develop the family industry in a diversified direction and completely tear off the label of Tang family's spirit stones in the future. There was still more than half a month before the God of Cookery tournament. Jun Changshao was quite bored living in the city lord's mansion, so he occasionally took Yao Menjing out to shop. Jun Patriarch. On this day, just as he walked out of a crystal core shop, a few burly men blocked his way and said, "Our young master is holding a banquet at Ihong restaurant, I wonder if you have time to go." "Young master?" Jun Changshao said. The middle-aged man said, "Tang family's young master Tang Li O." Jun Changshao said in surprise, "He's a big shot, even if he doesn't have time, he has to make time. Junior sister, why did you come back alone? Where's Patriarch? Patriarch was invited to E-Home restaurant. E-Home restaurant? That's a brothel, how can Patriarch go to such a place? I tried to stop him, but the sect master insisted on going. He even purposely sent me away. If I knew, I would have called senior sister. E-Home restaurant. One of the top high-class brothels in the great sage imperial city. At this moment, at the door of the Drunken Life box, the 4 leading ladies were left outside, each with a more interesting expression than the last. Young Master Tang. Jun Changshao sat inside and said, since it's a discussion, it's a bit inappropriate to let them stay here, right? It's inappropriate, it's inappropriate. Tang Li smiled, then gave Qin Mei, Zhu Lan, and the other 2 girls a look. The latter bowed slightly and retreated, muttering in her heart, I didn't expect the eternal Sect's sovereign to be such a hypocrite. If they knew that Jun Gosheng was not only indifferent to a group of beauties, but also taught them to dance in the middle of the night, they would not think of him as a hypocrite, but as an idiot. Chapter 8:14. After the 4 main characters left, Jun Changshao said, Young Master Tang, why are you looking for this seat? Tang Li frowned slightly. As the 3rd generation young master of the Tang family, he had made friends with many patriarch of the big sections. No one dared to call himself this seat. In fact, Jun Changshao had been calling himself this seat for a long time. Some readers tend to treat this as a poison point at the beginning of the article and retreat. But he was already used to it. However, sometimes it also depended on the person and the place. For example, in front of Tang Ren and City Lord Han, he would call himself Jun, which would make him seem more amiable. As for other patriarch or enemies, he would definitely call himself this seat. In front of Tang Li, he called himself this seat. This meant that Jun Changshao did not treat this guy as a friend. It was not because he was on Tang Ren's team, but because when the middle-aged man who came to invite him called him young Master Tang, Tang Li, his attitude and voice were almost as arrogant as Li Tian Tian. With this kind of conduct, the master must be very arrogant. Sure enough. This was the first time he met this fair-skinned young Master Tang. Although the other party had been very gentle, the arrogance between his eyebrows could not be suppressed. His cooperation with Tang Ren was very confidential, he definitely did not know. Today he took the initiative to invite him should be because the sect was in the limelight recently. Sure enough. He guessed right. Tang Li smiled and said, Jun Patriarch is young and promising, and the sect has also recently become famous. This young master admires him quite a lot. Today I invited him, just hoping to make friends. If Jun Changshao invited him when he was in urgent need of business partners, he would definitely take it seriously. But now, he just treated it as a courtesy and did not take it to heart at all. Jun Changshao said rather awkwardly, this seat is a little embarrassed to let young Master Tang spend money. It's okay, it's okay. Tang Li smiled and said, this little expense, this young master won't care. In that case. Jun Changshao picked up the menu next to him and said, Jun, will you order now? Please. Tang Li smiled. Don't choose. Jun Changshao put down the menu and said, give me one of each. Tang Li's expression froze as he said, there are at least 100 kinds of food on this menu. Can Jun Patriarch eat them all? I definitely won't be able to eat it. Jun Changshao said, however, if it's paired with a few jars of the most expensive wine, there shouldn't be any problems. The corner of Tang Li's mouth twitched. Forget it. Jun Changshao said, looking at young Master Tang's distressed expression, just a bowl of rice and some side dishes will do. No, no. Tang Li hurriedly said, since Jun Patriarch can eat, this young master will gladly lend you a loan. She looked at the old woman who was waiting by the side and said, shopkeeper Xian, give me one of every dish in your restaurant. Yes, young Master Tang. Just as shopkeeper Xian was about to leave, Jun Changshao asked, if we can't finish it, can we take it away? Tang Li almost fell to the ground. Brother, don't order so much if you can't finish it. What's the meaning of takeaway? Still, this young master doesn't lack money, so you're wasting it. Shopkeeper Xian smiled and said, since you're young master Tang's friend, of course you can take it away. Oh. Jun Changshao responded and looked at Tang Li, I still have a disciple who hasn't eaten yet. You don't mind letting him come, right? Tang Li politely said, I don't mind. Shua. Not long after, the Purple King received the Patriarch's message and rushed over. He sat down and his eyes immediately widened because there were many dishes stacked on the big round table. The most valiant thing was, because there was no place to put them, many servants were standing at the side with 2 dishes each. What's going on? Zi Huan. Jun Changshao said, you haven't eaten in a long time since you rushed from the sect to the imperial city. Since young Master Tang is treating you to a meal, don't be shy and eat to your heart's content. He transmitted, eat all of it. If it's not enough, ask for more. The Purple King was a little confused, but since the Patriarch said so, he took a deep breath and said, in that case, I won't be shy. Tang Li said, please. Pang, as soon as he said that, the Purple King's clothes suddenly burst open, revealing his red underwear. The sudden change shocked young Master Tang so much that he almost fell off his chair. Jun Changshao's expression collapsed. Fuck. He even burst his clothes just to eat. This guy is really hopeless. No, he's incurable. Jun Patriarch, this disciple of yours. Tang Li's expression was also very interesting. After all, people from big clans were more cultured. This kind of naked behavior was really inappropriate. Jun Changshao said, young Master Tang, please don't mind him. This disciple of mine likes to eat naked. Tang Li collapsed, what a refined taste. Shua. The Purple King completely ignored other people's strange gazes. He took a few meat dishes in front of him and began to wolf them down. Although the taste was far from Lu Wansher's, it was at least better than raw meat. He could still make do with it. Don't just eat. Drink some wine. Jun Changshao said, it's at least tens of thousands of taels per jar. Yes, yes. The Purple King ate with both hands. With one hand holding the rice and the other holding the jar of wine, he took the opportunity to gulp down a few mouthfuls. If a human were to eat so much, they definitely wouldn't be able to finish it. But as a beast, as long as he ate without restraint, he could clean the entire home restaurant. Seeing him eat so happily, Jun Changshao was also hungry. Thus, he ignored his status as the Patriarch and began to wolf down the food. And so, the scene that appeared in the private room was, Tang Li stared with wide eyes. The two of them were wolfing down the food like a tornado sweeping away the clouds. Jun Patriarch, if you have something to say, wait until I'm full before we talk. Fine. Tang Li didn't say anything else. Half an hour later, countless plates were stacked on the table. There wasn't even a trace of oil on them. They had finished everything. As for the wine that cost tens of thousands of taels per jar, they had also drunk 5 or 6 jars. Tang Li's face twitched. Although he didn't lack money, eating and drinking in the extremely expensive home restaurant would definitely cost a lot of money when the bill was settled. The money of the rich didn't come out of nowhere, so it would definitely be very painful. Burped. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and burped. Then, he bit his toothpick and said, thank you for your hospitality, young Master Tang. Tang Li didn't forget his etiquette and gave a heartache smile. He was still looking at the Sect of All Time's disciple from the corner of his eye. This guy had eaten the most, but from the looks of it, he was only half full. Patriarch. The Purple King said, can I order more? This. Jun Changshao looked at Tang Li and said, that will depend on young Master Tang. Tang Li's current mood could only be described as holy shit. But in order to show his magnanimity, he could only force a smile and say, please help yourself. Just one of each. Remember, bring 4 jars of wine, Jun Changshao said. Since someone was treating. Based on his principles, he would eat as much as he could and wouldn't hold back. Chapter 8:15. Half an hour later. The Purple King clutched his stomach and yawned, I'm full. The plates on the table in front of him were piled up 1 meter high, and the empty wine jars were scattered all over the floor. This was really not polite at all. Tang Li's forehead was covered in sweat, but he was also relieved. Jun Patriarch. He smiled, this young master has always liked to make friends with heroes of the world, so I hope we can keep in touch. Treating him to a meal was secondary, the real purpose was to make friends. Even if he wouldn't help him for the time being, it might be useful in the future. Jun Changshao said, based on my relationship with the Tang family's second young master, I will naturally keep in touch with the Tang family's eldest young master. Tang family's second young master. Tang Li's smile gradually froze. Jun Changshao said in surprise, does young master Tang not know Tang Ren? This young master's cousin naturally knows him. Tang Li said, but, your relationship? Friends. Jun Chang smiled and said, the very iron kind. Tang Li's face became ugly. That year in the Tang family, he stopped his cousin and gave him the sect of all times as if he was giving alms. He thought that with Tang Ren's ability, the most he could do was pay a visit, and the two wouldn't have much of a relationship. Today, he personally went out, and he would definitely be able to pull this sect over. However, in the end, they had already become friends, and very close friends. Tang Li understood that Jun Changshao was telling him that he had already teamed up with his cousin. People who did business all year round had a good brain. Young Master Tang. Jun Changshao said, it's getting late, so I'll take my disciples back first. After saying that, he took his disciples and left. When he reached the door of the room, he didn't forget to say in a very gentlemanly manner, thank you for your hospitality. Tang Li tightly held the wine cup and said coldly, cousin, I still underestimated you. Young Master Tang. Shopkeeper Xian walked in and said with a smile, the total cost is 354,000 taels, round it down to 350,000 taels. So expensive? The expression on Tang Li's face could no longer be maintained. Manager Xian said, young Master Tang ate more than 300 dishes and 10 bottles of osmanthus wine. Oh, by the way, Jun Patriarch also took several jars of wine with him before he left. He said that he could savor them at home. Crack. The wine cup suddenly shattered. Tang Li gritted his teeth and said, Jun Changshao, you're messing with me on purpose. Discovered. But it was too late. Jun Changshao wouldn't have been so deliberate if the men he sent had been more humble when inviting people. Conclusion. Young Master Tang had treated them for nothing, and Jun Patriarch had freeloaded them for nothing. City Lord's Mansion. Jun Changshao had just returned when Tang Ren rushed in and asked, Tang Li invited Jun Patriarch? Okay, Jun Changshao replied. Tang Ren became nervous. After all, his eldest cousin brother was better than him in roping people in. Your eldest cousin brother is very enthusiastic. He treated me to a big meal. I'm afraid he spent a lot of money, Jun Changshao said. Tang Ren said bitterly, my eldest cousin brother is the most generous when it comes to roping people in. He wants to be friends with me, but I've already told him that we're very close friends. I think he won't bother us anymore, Jun Changshao said. Tang Ren was delighted. Brother Tang. Jun Changshao said seriously, continue to work hard. Don't let Jun down. He had laid all his cards on the table with Tang Li, which meant that he had placed all his bets on Tang Ren. If Tang Ren couldn't become the next patriarch, he would definitely be very depressed. Thank you, Jun Patriarch, for your trust." Tang Ren said, "This Tang will definitely not let you down." Having the right to sell divine weapons and pills was his capital to gain a foothold in the Tang family. As long as he managed it well and led the other businesses, he would definitely get the old man's approval. The advertisement was still playing wildly, and the happiest person was none other than City Lord Han. This was because many business tycoons in the city continued to come to him, hoping to put their businesses on the projection array. Tang Ji Pharmacy's business was booming, and many people could see it with their own eyes. Therefore, shrewd businessmen wouldn't miss such a great opportunity. "It's possible," City Lord Han said, "but the price might be a little expensive." "City Lord Han, please name your price." 100,000 spirit stones. "No problem." City Lord Han's mouth twitched slightly, and he transmitted his voice to Jun Changshao behind him. "Jun Patriarch, did I ask for too little?" "Of course." Jun Changshao broke down. Tang Ji Pharmacy's sales skyrocketed after the advertisement, and the profit it brought is definitely not something 100,000 spirit stones can compare to. "No matter what, you have to ask for 200,000 spirit stones." Sigh. City Lord Han said, "Isn't that because I don't have experience?" "Tell them." Jun Changshao said, 100,000 spirit stones can only be broadcasted during the morning and noon hours. If you want to broadcast it during the prime time, you have to ask for at least 200,000. 300,000 spirit stones. This, City Lord Han was a little embarrassed, but he could only take a gamble. Therefore, he told them about the advertisement being broadcasted in segments. In the end, the business mogul agreed readily. It turned out that using the projection array to make money was such a simple thing. Why didn't he think of it before? City Lord Han. Someone said, "Can we advertise our businesses like Tang Ji's Elixir Pharmacy?" "Of course." City Lord Han added, "But we have to pay an additional fee." A satisfied smile appeared on Jun Changshao's face. He didn't deliberately remind him. City Lord Han had been enlightened and knew how to seize business opportunities. Sigh. A Wu Sheng. Just like that, he was influenced by Jun Changshao and became secular and commercialized. He was definitely deceiving people. Of course, with City Lord Han's imagination, he could only use the projection array to earn the rental fee. The creative planning of the advertisement would still be done by Jun Changshao. The spirit stones given by the rich people would naturally fall into his pocket. "We're not accepting gifts this year. We're only accepting brocade. Although the golden wine is good, don't drink too much. 8 hearts 8 arrows diamond ring from He Ji Jade Store, not 3 to 500,000, not 1 to 200,000, just 998. Just 998. Bring the 8 hearts 8 arrows diamond ring home." Southwest Yangzhou's largest tannery, has closed down. "Return my hard-earned money, return my hard-earned money." All kinds of advertisements were broadcasted on the projection array. The whole world was turned upside down by Jun Changshao. Some people even stopped cultivating and sat on the small bench looking up at the screen, wondering what the next advertisement would be. City Lord Mansion. The big families came in an endless stream to visit. As long as they had a big business that covered the whole continent, they would definitely be willing to spend money on advertising to increase their popularity. At first, it was only from various industries. As their peers joined in, the advertising fee gradually increased. In the end, City Lord Han didn't offer a price. He called a few big shots of the same business over and sat at the side to watch them offer a price. Whoever offered the highest price would get the advertisement spot. There were only a few days left before the start of the God of Cookery tournament. The big business families were fighting for the advertising rights. A large number of spirit stones poured into the City Lord Mansion and poured into City Lord Han and Jun Changshao's money bags. Cheers! Cheers! The two of them would celebrate every night, as if they were in cahoots. The God of Cookery tournament was about to begin. Participants from all over the world entered the great sage imperial city one after another. The atmosphere gradually became serious. June Patriarch. On the city wall, Tang Ren pointed to the young man who had just entered with a kitchen knife and various tableware hanging from his waist. His name is Lin Yao, the personal disciple of the 43rd God of Cookery tournament's champion. His knife skills are superb. Where's Song Bao? Jun Changshao said, is he here yet? Tang Ren shook his head and said, as the top seed of this God of Cookery tournament, he shouldn't appear in front of others easily. Tsk tisk. Jun Changshao said, he's quite mysterious. Chapter 8:16. There were only a few days left before the start of the God of Cookery tournament. A large number of martial artists from other prefectures poured into the imperial city. The reason why there was such a large audience was because of the advertisement that was broadcast to the entire continent every day after the projection array was activated. The participants of this year's God of Cookery tournament also arrived one after another. They might not be strong in martial arts, but they were definitely the best in cooking. After all, to be qualified to participate, they had to at least get a good ranking in the prefecture's cooking competitions. Strangely enough, Song Bao, the favorite to win, was nowhere to be seen, creating a very mysterious feeling. The strongest. They were all the last ones to appear. So, many martial artists expressed their understanding. Jun Changshao was also very curious. What was so special about that disciple of the God of Cookery? Even before the tournament started, everyone was talking about him. During this period, Lu Wancher studied recipes in the city lord's mansion every day and almost never went out. Participating in the Southwest Yangzhou cooking competition, she could remain calm, but as the God of Cookery tournament was about to start, she became more and more nervous. Girl, don't doubt yourself at any time. Just work hard and fight. Jun Changshao encouraged her verbally. Lu Wancher calmed herself down and told herself not to be too nervous. Let's go. Jun Changshao said, let's go register. The registration point was at the plaza in the center of the city. When Jun Changshao arrived with his disciples, there were already cooking geniuses from all over the world. Although there were many people, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they were all very young. The oldest was only in his early 30s. Name. Arriving at the registration point, the old man said. Jun Changshao said, Sect of all times, Lu Wancher. Oh. The old man raised his head in surprise and saw the smiling young man in front of him. He immediately recognized that this was the patriarch of the Sect of all times who was crazily advertising on the screen. From the projection array, he seemed to be asking for a beating. He did not expect to see the real person. It turned out that, he was even more annoying. Take out the proof of qualification, the old man said. Any tournament had to be done according to the rules. He would not make things easy just because the other party was the sect leader who was in the limelight recently. Slap. Lu Wancher placed the token given to the champion of the Southwest Yangzhou cooking competition on the table. After the old man confirmed it, he recorded it down and said, 3 days later, go to the west side of the city. Remember not to be late, or you will be disqualified. She's Lu Wancher, the champion of the Southwest Yangzhou culinary competition. Tisk tsk, I didn't expect you to be so young. The Ouyang family can be considered as a culinary family with a long history. I can't believe they were defeated by a 15-year-old girl. Don't underestimate her. I heard that she passed all 3 rounds with full marks. The judges of such a small place definitely haven't seen the world. If they came to my central province to participate in the culinary competition, it would undoubtedly be a fool's dream to get full marks. While everyone was discussing, some contestants began to show off their superiority, completely looking down on Lu Wancher. The grand culinary competition was held in every province, and each place had its own standards. Therefore, getting full marks in southwest Yangzhou might not be enough to catch the eyes of other warriors. Furthermore, back then, the Ouyang family had also had a direct descendant who had obtained full marks in the finals and participated in the God of Cookery competition. In the end, he did not even enter the top 10. A place's environment nurtured a place's people. Areas with superior environments and geography, in terms of overall strength, were indeed stronger than remote areas. I heard that this Lu Wanshi is the illegitimate daughter of the Ouyang family's Ouyang Jun. There's such a thing. Everyone looked at Lu Wanshi, and a different kind of light appeared in their eyes. In the falling star continent, status was often emphasized. The direct descendants of the family were the noblest, and the illegitimate children were the most despised. They were also the most criticized by others. Her father, Ouyang Jun, was also a famous playboy in southwest Yangzhou. As that person was talking, he suddenly felt someone approaching. The Purple King had unknowingly appeared behind him, and a cold light flickered in his eyes. The patriarch had ordered him to come. However, seeing that Lu Wanshi kept her head down, he instantly became angry. Although the Purple King had always firmly believed that he was enduring in the sect of all times, he only had a good impression of Lu Wanshi. After all, the delicacies that he ate all came from her. Now that someone was gossiping and making her very sad, it was absolutely unforgivable. Jin Dejuan did not come. Otherwise, seeing that the girl was wronged, he would have already started to set up a lightning array. It would not matter even if the entire imperial city was blown up. Among the disciples of the sect of all times, if the danger level reached 10 stars, Yi Xingqian could give it 9.5 stars. Only Lu Wanshi could reach 10 stars, because whoever bullied her had to ask the Purple King and Jin Dejuan first. "You! What are you doing?" that martial artist said in horror. The elder beside him said in a deep voice, "Jun Patriarch, what is your disciple trying to do?" "Boring." Jun Changshao was expressionless, and said, "Let him remember." Hit. Boom! The Purple King pushed forward with his shoulder, and directly hit that gossipy man to the ground, causing him to spit out blood on the spot. It was better to hold back, or else he would die. The surrounding martial artists were all dumbfounded. To dare to make a move in the imperial city, the sect of all times was really lawless. Remember all of this in your heart. Jun Changshao glanced at the surrounding martial artists, and said, "Anyone who dares to use words to hurt the disciples of the sect of all times will have to pay the price." If it was just questioning Lu Wanshi's cooking skills, he would definitely not care. After all, their mouths were on other people's bodies. The only thing he could do was to let his disciples win the competition and slap their faces. Just like that gossipy man just now, who purposely used his background to ridicule. Not to mention the imperial city, even if it was in front of the emperor, he would still punish him. When Jun Changshao spoke, his face was expressionless, but the surrounding atmosphere instantly became solemn, causing many martial artists to shudder. At that moment, their instincts told them deeply that they could not afford to offend this man. Jun Changshao. That elder said angrily, making a move in the imperial city without permission, "This old man will go and find the city lord to judge." No need to go. At that moment, City Lord Han had already appeared at the scene, and said, "I'm already here." City Lord Han. Everyone bowed one after another. That elder pointed at the Purple King and said, "A disciple of the sect of all times injured someone, please seek justice for my disciple, City Lord Han." This City Lord has already seen the scene just now. City Lord Han said, "The other party just happened to bump into your direct descendant, he did not intend to hurt anyone." Everyone's mouth twitched. As long as one was not blind, they could see that that guy had intentionally bumped into someone under Jun Changshao's instructions. Understood. City Lord Han was protecting the sect of all times. That elder's expression was extremely ugly, but he could only admit defeat and said, "Since City Lord Han said so, I guess it's just a misunderstanding." "Since it's a misunderstanding, let's disperse," City Lord Han said calmly. The elder helped the injured direct descendant up. Just as he was about to leave, he heard Jun Changshao say, "You must pay attention to your safety when you're outside, you must not casually stand on the road. Otherwise, if you get hit by a passing car and die, your family will cry." His voice was still calm, but there was a hidden killing intent in his words. When that elder heard this, a chill ran down his spine, and he was secretly annoyed that his direct descendant had to discuss the private matters of the sect of all times in front of others. Chapter 8:17 June Patriarch. After returning to the City Lord's mansion, City Lord Han was speechless. "You're making me look bad." Although he was the City Lord and could ignore the rules, there were so many people watching. Forcefully protecting the sect of all times was a little inappropriate. "I won't do it again," Jun Changshao said apologetically. He and City Lord Han were business partners, so he deliberately suppressed it just now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just let the Purple King bump into it. Another 2 business families got the right to advertise. "You'll have to do the advertising," City Lord Han said. When it came to business, this Wuxia powerhouse immediately smiled. Obviously, it was just a small matter. Earning money was the big deal. "No problem," Jun Changshao said. After chatting with City Lord Han for a while, he returned to the courtyard where he was temporarily staying. He saw Lu Wancher sitting alone in the pavilion, her small face full of worry. "What are you thinking about?" Jun Changshao sat down. Lu Wancher came back to her senses and lowered her head. "Patriarch, I'm sorry, why are you sorry?" Jun Changshao asked. "Because," Lu Wancher said, "my identity has embarrassed the Patriarch." "Silly girl." Jun Changshao patted her head and laughed. "Your identity is a disciple of the sect of all times. How can it be embarrassing?" I have another identity," Lu Wancher said. Jun Changshao frowned. "I've always emphasized that others can look down on you, but you must look up to yourself. Otherwise, it's really hopeless." Lu Wancher also wanted to look up to herself, but her identity as an illegitimate daughter would always make her heart ache whenever it was mentioned. "Look." Jun Changshao pointed at the Z craggy monster king, who was happily eating fried rice at the entrance of the central room, and said, "He is the king of the beast race, his status is incomparably noble. How can he not be happy when he condescends to become a disciple of the eternal sect?" Lu Wancher was speechless. "Why is he happy?" "Because I ate fried rice." Jun Changshao said, "For an incomparably noble king to bow down to your craftsmanship, it means that status is useless. It's nothing more than some idiots deliberately belittling others because they think too highly of themselves." Hearing the Patriarch's explanation, Lu Wancher seemed to have understood something, especially when she looked at the Purple King who was eating fried rice. Her brows relaxed and she said with a smile, "This disciple seems to have understood. The competition is about to begin." Jun Changshao said, "So what you need to do now is adjust your mentality and represent the sect of all times to bring back the championship trophy." "Yes." Lu Wancher nodded heavily. With a wave of his hand, Jun Changshao took out a new set of white clothes and said, "This is the chef's uniform used by the ancestors who created the Chinese cookbook. Wear it to show the prestige of the sect." The system retorted, "You obviously bought it from the mall." It did not understand that Jun Changshao was encouraging Lu Wancher. He was not affected by his identity and became less confident. Munch munch. The Purple King who was sitting at the door of the central room finished his fried rice and looked at the pavilion. He thought to himself, "What are they mumbling about?" 19. The weather was sunny and the weather was pleasant. Martial artists from all over the country went to the west side of the city and entered the viewing platform with decent specifications. Jun Changshao brought the Purple King and Yao Menjing to watch as well. Jun Patriarch. Just as he sat down, Tang Ren walked over and saluted. Brother, I'm here to cheer for your sect's disciple. Thank you. Jun Changshao saluted. In the middle of the circular viewing platform was a wider platform. There were many stoves and cooking tools on it. That was right. This was where the God of Cookery tournament would be held. When the tournament began, culinary geniuses from all over the world would compete on the platform for the trophy with the words God of Cookery. The lens of the projection array transmitted the image of the arena to the whole continent. Martial artists who could not come had already prepared snacks such as melon seeds and peanuts to watch the upcoming large-scale food broadcast. Of course. Because it was not a hot-blooded battle, the atmosphere was relatively calm. Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. Just as everyone was waiting for the contestants to appear, the image on the light screen suddenly changed to an advertisement of Tang Ji Elixir Pharmacy. No way. The God of Cookery tournament was about to begin and they were still advertising crazily. However, what made everyone collapse was that once the advertisement started, it could not be stopped at all. It was not until more than 10 advertisements that the screen returned to the host venue. Was this an advertisement in the God of Cookery tournament or an advertisement in the middle of the God of Cookery tournament? Everyone. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in the arena and said loudly, "Welcome to the 50th God of Cookery tournament. I am one of the organizers, Huang Jinzan." The 50th? Jun Changshao was stunned. Tang Ren, who was sitting next to him, said, "Jun Patriarch, is there a problem? Isn't it the 49th? That was the previous one." Jun Changshao suddenly frowned. There was not much money left after entering the imperial city. The token clearly stated that it was the 49th, and he had always thought that it was the 49th. No, no. Since it was the 50th, what was the use of being the 49th chief judge? Brother Tang. Jun Changshao said, "Do you know not much money?" "Yes." Tang Ren said, "A fat tycoon with mines and real estate. Fat head and big ears." Based on this description alone, Jun Changshao suddenly realized that the money he saw was not much money as Tang Ren said. Damn. Jun Changshao collapsed and said to himself, "Why do I feel like I've been cheated? It doesn't seem like it." The system said, "I've really been cheated." The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. He had always been the one to fool others. He did not expect to be cheated by a little brat. However, there was no loss, not to mention that he had earned so much money in spirit stones. However, what made Jun Changshao puzzled was, since this little guy was not much money, who could it be? An ordinary teenager would definitely not have so much money, and would not give it to others casually. Just as Jun Changshao was thinking, Huang Jinzan had finished talking about the glorious history of the culinary god competition, and then announced in a clear voice, "Now, let's welcome the contestants." Swish. Just as the contestants were about to go on stage, the virtual screen once again showed the advertisement of Tang's Elixir Pharmacy, which almost made them stand up and curse. After the advertisement ended, under the anticipation of everyone, culinary geniuses from all over the world came out one after another. Lu Wancher was among them. She was wearing the chef's uniform given by the patriarch and a tall hat, which was very eye-catching in the crowd. Clothing was only one of the reasons. The real eye-catching thing was that among the 100 contestants who came in, she was the only female. I didn't expect there to be a girl among the contestants. This girl is a disciple of the sect of all times. It can't be. Everyone was surprised. Obviously, they did not expect that a sect that was in the limelight recently would send a disciple to participate in a culinary competition. Junior sister Lu, senior sister, go for it. In the sect of all times, Li Tian, Cui Bujian, and the others shouted loudly. Although the person involved could not hear it, as fellow disciples, they were duty-bound to cheer for her. The entrance of the culinary god competition was not as grand as the entrance of the dragon and tiger battle for supremacy. The audience did not even have any emotional changes, giving people the feeling that they were just here to watch the fun. Next. Suddenly, Huang Jinzan said in a clear voice, "Let's welcome the culinary god's disciple." As soon as the words came out, everyone was suddenly interested and looked at the entrance. All the martial artists in the continent were very curious about what this mysterious champion looked like. Swish! Under the anticipation of everyone, a person walked out from the darkness. He was not tall, and he was young, with an innocent smile on his face. What the fuck? After seeing that guy's face, Jun Changshao suddenly widened his eyes. Lu Wanshi also covered her mouth and said in surprise, "It's him." Who? Not much money to leave after entering the city. Thud. The little guy walked to the high platform and stopped in front of Lu Wanshi. He revealed his white teeth and smiled. "Let me formally introduce myself. I'm Song Bao, a disciple of the culinary god competition. The culinary god's disciple. The champion's favorite." He actually took the initiative to introduce himself to a contestant. In an instant, all the contestants present looked at Lu Wanshi, their eyes flashing with a strange luster. Song Bao said seriously, "Miss Lu's culinary skills are very strong. I might not be able to win, but since I'm participating in the culinary god competition, I will definitely do my best." As soon as the words came out, the audience was in an uproar. The culinary god's disciple actually said that this girl's culinary skills were strong, and he might not be able to win. Chapter 8:18. Jun Changshao never thought that the real identity of the young man he saved would be the disciple of the culinary god, Song Bao. Then, what was the situation with Qian Budwa? Jun Changshao thought for a moment and knew that this guy was definitely pretending. As for the reason, only he knew in his heart. A successor of the culinary god who could make himself faint on the road was definitely a super weirdo. Or, this guy did it on purpose, deliberately getting close to Lu Wanshi. No. Jun Changshao rubbed his temples, and said, "My mind is a little messy, I have to think carefully. If this guy was deliberately getting close, why was he so generous with money and spirit stones? Moreover, why did he pretend to be rich?" Jun Changshao, who had a lot of imagination, suddenly realized that the more he thought about it, the more unreasonable he felt. He could not guess what that guy's intentions were. The system gloated, "It's rare to see the host suffer, why am I so happy to pinch? Get lost." Back in the arena. When the contestants heard Song Bao's words, all of them widened their eyes. This year's culinary god competition was recognized as the favorite to win the championship, but he actually thought that he could not defeat this girl in cooking. Polite words. Modest words. However, from his eyes, it was obvious that he was very serious. Lu Wanshi's face was full of doubts. Didn't you not have much money? How did you become Song Bao? I won't hide it from Miss Lu." Song Bao scratched his head and said, "My surname is Qian, my name is Song Bao, Qian Budwa is my father. He asked me to become a disciple of the culinary god, unless I learned my skills and used my surname, I had to obediently go home and inherit the family business." "I see." Lu Wanshi understood. Jun Changshao, who had been releasing his spiritual sense, heard this and suddenly understood, his heart collapsed. Let the son be a chef, if he doesn't do well, he will come back and inherit the family business, even if he doesn't have much money, he is still a top-quality weirdo. Shoo. Qian Song Bao said, "This is my secret, don't tell anyone." The contestants, the people of the entire continent, at this time, should we cooperate with him and pretend not to hear? So Song Bao is Qian Song Bao. Although the Qian family head has many wives and concubines, he only has one son. I thought that the identity of the god of cooking's disciple was very ordinary. I didn't expect him to have such a rich father. I heard that family head Qian likes to eat very much. As long as the food is to his liking, he is willing to pay a lot of money or even spirit stones. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. He's very similar to his father in this aspect. Master Qian's son has been very lazy since he was young. It is said that he didn't even use chopsticks until he was 7 years old. He always let the servants feed him with a spoon. The son of a landlord is awesome. How could such a lazy person become the culinary god's disciple? That's unbelievable. Maybe Patriarch Qian spent money to let his son become a disciple of the food god. Sure enough, money makes the world go round. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. However, they also had doubts about Qian Songbao's cooking skills. Money could buy him the identity of the culinary god's disciple, but culinary skills could not be bought with money. The contestants also thought so. Therefore, his vigilance towards Qian Songbao gradually weakened. He thought to himself, why should I be afraid of a guy who relied on his father? As for what he said to Lu Wancher just now, everyone did not take it to heart. There were even some people who thought that this guy might know that he did not have the real ability and wanted to find a way out in advance to avoid embarrassing himself. Jun Chang smiled and said, "What an unfathomable little fellow. Why did you pretend to be your father?" Lu Wancher asked. Qian Songbao smiled and said, "It's fun." The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. The son pretended to be the father only because it was fun. He definitely did not take the normal path. All right. Lu Wancher did not say anything else. Although she was very surprised by Qian Songbao's identity, since she was participating in the culinary god competition, she naturally had to focus on the competition. "Miss Lu," Qian Songbao said, "your clothes are not bad." Lu Wancher said proudly, "This is what my sect of all time's culinary ancestors have worn before." "I see." Qian Songbao's eyes were filled with respect. "May I know the name of the sect of all time's culinary ancestors?" This, Jun Changxiao transmitted his voice to Lu Wancher, "Our sect of all time's culinary ancestors are called Yi-Yin." Yi-Yin. Yi-Yin. Qian Songbao said in his heart, "I have never heard Master mention this person before." That was right. Yi-Yin was a Chinese from Earth. He was a famous politician and thinker in the early years of the Shang dynasty. He was one of the earliest known Taoists and was also known as the ancestor of Chinese culinary. Huang Jinzhan announced loudly, "The 50th Culinary God competition has officially begun. Participants, please enter the venue and choose your own stove. It's finally starting." It was rare for everyone to be excited, but the screen turned into an advertisement again. They were so irritable that they almost vomited blood. Fuck. How could they let others watch it? Shio. After the advertisement ended, the screen showed the screen. 120 participants were all in their seats. 10 of the judges were also seated. These judges were much more professional than the judges in the culinary competition. They were all top-notch gourmet appraisers. Lu Wancher chose a corner that was hard to find if one did not look carefully. Beside her was Qian Songbao. To be exact, this guy followed her here on purpose. "Miss Lu," he whispered, "you are free to do whatever you want in the first round. If you cook the sweet and sour carp, you will definitely advance." Lu Wancher did not say anything. She carefully cleaned the cooking utensils. She came to participate in the culinary god competition as a representative of the sect of all times. Naturally, she did not dare to be negligent. Qian Songbao sensibly began to prepare. Swoosh! One of his hands rested on the handle of the wok. His eyes, which were originally slightly lazy, suddenly turned cold. "Expert." Jun Changxiao said, "Definitely an expert. You are free to do whatever you want in the first round of the culinary god competition." Huang Jinzhan said loudly, "Participants, please make your signature dish in 2 hours. After the judges give you 80 points, you will advance to the next round. The highest score given by each of the 10 judges is 10 points. 80 points to advance to the next round means that the average score is 8 points. This culinary god competition is indeed more difficult than the culinary competition. Everyone exclaimed. Begin. Huang Jinzhan shouted. Huff, huff, huff. As soon as she said that, the participants condensed flames and injected them into the stove. The entire arena was suddenly filled with hot air. Those who came to participate in the culinary god competition all mastered one type of fire element. These flames are not used for combat. They are all from the culinary category. The disciples of the sect of all times and the culinary god's disciple did not move. Did they not hear that the competition has begun? One was the only female participating, and the other was the culinary god's disciple. Therefore, Lu Wanshi and Qian Songbao naturally attracted many people's attention. Miss Lu. Qian Songbao smiled and said, I'm starting. Swoosh. As he spoke, he turned his wrist. Purple flames erupted from his fingers and immediately merged into the stove. Hidden purple flame. This is one of the strongest flames used for cooking. This culinary god's disciple is the real deal. He definitely did not use money. Huff huff, the hidden purple flame burned wildly. The temperature instantly suppressed the other flames. It was like a crane in a flock of chickens. Huff. Lu Wanshi exhaled, then looked up at Jun Changshao. The latter gave her an encouraging smile and said, Little girl, you must believe in yourself. Lu Wanshi raised her hand, her eyes shining. Wine. The word stove that was originally hidden on her skin suddenly appeared. Huff huff huff, the fire of the culinary god whizzed out and merged into the stove. When the flame rose, the temperature of the entire venue instantly rose. Swish swish swish. The flames of the other stoves could not withstand the pressure. They instantly turned from high to weak, as if they could be extinguished at any time. All the contestants' faces changed. They all looked towards the direction of the commotion and saw the fire of the culinary god in the stove. They were all shocked and said, What? What kind of flame is this? Qian Songbao, who was closest to it, had a change of expression. Even if he tried hard to control the hidden purple flame, he could not change the fact that he was at a disadvantage. He exclaimed, To be able to make my flame submit, this flame is definitely the strongest of the culinary category. When Lu Wanshi released the fire of the culinary god, all the flames in the arena were suppressed. It could be said that once the strongest flame was released, no one could compete with it. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair, shrugged helplessly, and said, absolutely crushed. No suspense. Chapter 8:19. The falling star continent did not have the stove god fire, so when Lu Wanshi took it out, no one could tell what kind of fire element it was. But that was not important. What was important was that after the stove god fire appeared, all the contestants' flames, including Qian Songbao's purple hidden flame, were suppressed. It's definitely not ordinary. I didn't expect there to be a flame that can suppress the purple hidden flame in this world. This little girl is not simple. The 10 judges exclaimed as they discussed. Although flames did not represent cooking skills, a high-level flame would undoubtedly be of great help in cooking. I've asked about the Southwest Yangzhou cooking competition, but I've never heard of this girl having a powerful flame. She even used firewood to start a fire during the competition. Maybe her opponent was too weak to use it. If that's the case, this girl might bring us a big surprise. The judges all locked their gazes on Lu Wanshi. She also realized that she had released the stove god fire and made a big commotion, so she hurriedly restrained her aura. Whoosh! Whoosh! Without the pressure of the king-level flame, the contestants' flames gradually returned to normal. However, after this incident, everyone's expression was extremely solemn. At first, they did not take Lu Wanchur seriously. After all, she was a woman who came to participate in the God of Cookery competition because there was no one in southwest Yangzhou. However, when the stove god fire was released and displayed an extremely powerful pressure, they realized that this girl might be a strong opponent on their way to becoming the champion. Miss Lu. After Qian Songbao stabilized the flame, he said in surprise, "I didn't expect you to have such a powerful flame." "Don't talk." Lu Wanchur said, "Focus on cooking." "Okay." Qian Songbao shut his mouth. After starting the fire, he took half a kilogram of beef and selected various ingredients from the basket. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of a knife being unsheathed was heard. The contestants who were preparing ingredients subconsciously looked over and saw Lin Yao in front of the central stove had taken out the black kitchen knife hanging from his waist and slapped the chopping board with his other hand. His spiritual energy vibrated, and the ingredients placed on the chopping board suddenly flew up. Whoosh! 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 The light of the knife and the shadow of the sword crisscrossed. What a fast knife technique! A king-level expert frowned and said, "At least 100 times in a breath, 156 times. Jun Changshao gave him the exact number of times he attacked with his knife. He was speechless as he said, "There's really no one else who would choose to be a chef instead of cultivating his knife path properly." The system said, "Everyone has their own ambitions." That's true. Jun Changshao agreed. After all, with his looks, even if he couldn't become the strongest person in the other world, he could at least hug the thighs of a beautiful martial emperor and laugh proudly in the pugilistic world. However, he just had to become the leader of a sect. Sigh. Time and fate. The system said, "Does your family know how shameless you are?" Schwa. Lin Yao put the kitchen knife back into the sheath. All the auxiliary materials were cut into strips so thin that they could be threaded with a needle. Strong. As expected of the great Saber King's personal disciple. Using it to kill people can also easily dismember the target into countless pieces. Lin Yao's miraculous saber skills amazed the martial artists. However, in the sect of all times, Ma Yongning's eyes were filled with disdain as he sat in front of the cafeteria. There was a kitchen knife nailed to the chopping board behind him. Although Jun Changshao gave him a cloud-piercing knife, he was still using this kitchen knife because he was still responsible for cutting vegetables. Although Ma Yongning rarely fought in actual combat, he helped out in the cafeteria every day. His understanding of the saber skills was also increasing day by day. He even gradually comprehended the Ma's vegetable cutting technique while cutting vegetables. Lin Yao, who showed off his saber skills, in his opinion, was nothing more than fancy moves. If he was assigned to cut vegetables for tens of thousands of disciples, he would definitely fail. Old Ma. Oh Yangjun said, "Don't just stand there. Hurry up and prepare lunch." Okay. Ma Yongning walked into the kitchen. He skillfully put on an apron and drank a bowl of wine beside him. He grabbed the kitchen knife with one hand and said with his back facing the camera, "A true master is not fancy, but can stand the test of time." Schwa. Desert dust. Schwa. Flying yellow sand. The kitchen knife cut across the void horizontally and vertically, and then it was inserted on the chopping board again with a ding. The whole process was plain and unadorned, but the various auxiliary materials placed on the table were instantly cut into pieces from their intact state. Although Ma Yongning was not as showy as Lin Yao, his technique was more mature and sophisticated. Oh Yangjun, who was making a fire, looked out and shouted, "Old Ma, where are you going?" "The pharmacy." "You cut your finger again." Ma Yongning walked to the pharmacy without a word. He kept his back to the camera, giving off a heavy feeling of desert dust and flying yellow sand. An expert. Worthy of an expert. Back at the God of Cookery competition. After Lin Yao showed off his knife skills, the other contestants got busy one after another, obviously unaffected by the former. Good saber skills only provided assistance. The real determining factor was cooking skills. What should I cook? Lu Wanshi began to think, and various cuisines from Chinese cookbooks appeared in her mind. Got it. The little girl picked out a large piece of tofu and various auxiliary materials, and then began to cut it seriously. Sometimes she would come over to help cut the vegetables, and her knife skills were not inferior to Lin Yao's. Now that she was being careful, she hoped to do it perfectly. In order to get a good result, in order not to disappoint the patriarch, Lu Wanshi had already brought out her best state. Jun Changshao knew his disciple very well. Looking at her serious look, he shook his head and said, "The contestants this year are lucky and unlucky to be able to compete with this little girl on the same stage." Lucky was to be able to compete with a powerhouse who was proficient in cooking. Unlucky was that when she cooked seriously, she would definitely be affected. The contestants were busy working hard, and only Qian Songbao would occasionally be distracted to look at Lu Wanshi. In this year's God of Cookery competition, he did not care about the others, but this girl made him feel pressured. This was because he had eaten fried rice and sweet and sour carp on the way here. Qian Songbao inherited the mantle of the God of Cookery, and at the same time, he also inherited his father's foodie attribute. He was extremely sensitive to the taste of food, and even believed that what he had eaten before, even his master might not be able to make it. It was because of this that he did not reveal his true identity, but took out his father's token to participate in the God of Cookery competition in the upper realm. To be exact. After eating fried rice and sweet and sour carp, Qian Songbao's heart was already filled with a sense of inferiority. He especially could not understand how a girl who was only a few years older than him could have such superb cooking skills. Lu Wanshi's cooking skills were strong, partly because of her talent, and partly because she was in charge of the kitchen of the sect of all times. The scariest thing in this world was a talented person who was also very hardworking. How could those who comforted themselves by saying that the clumsy bird flies early and that hard work can make up for one's lack of talent live? Qian Songbao collected his slightly depressed mood and began to focus on cooking. Time passed quietly. 2 hours later. The big table in front of the ring was pieced together, and it was filled with the contestants' various dishes. Although the martial artists who were watching the screen could not smell the flavor, they could tell from many of the dishes that this was definitely a first-class delicacy. Saliva. Unstoppable. As Lu Wanshi was sitting in the corner, the dishes she cooked were the last to be served. They were served in a casserole pot with a lid on top, so no one knew what kind of cuisine it was. Let's invite the 10 judges to evaluate. Huang Jinfan said. Please. The 10 judges took their own cutlery and walked to the table to taste it. After tasting it, they would give the corresponding score. Ma Tiancheng has a total score of 79, eliminated. The champion of the Northern Desert State Culinary Competition has been eliminated in the first round. Why? Why? Ma Tiancheng roared at the judges in dissatisfaction. An old man with a sage-like demeanor said lightly, "The heat and taste are a little off." Everyone's mouth twitched. Just a little off, and they rejected the other person's work. These judges were too picky. Chapter 820. If it was a culinary competition, even if the contestant had the slightest flaw, the judges would be considerate. For example, Ma Tiancheng's dish could get at least 90 points, but he only got 79 points in the culinary god competition. Although it was only 1 point away, he could only be eliminated. The 10 judges invited by the organizers were extremely picky. They could not tolerate sand in their eyes and were extremely picky when it came to the color, aroma, and taste of the food. I don't accept this. I don't accept this. Ma Tiancheng was taken away by 2 powerhouses. He was still roaring loudly with tears in his eyes. After winning the culinary competition, he had been working hard on his culinary skills, hoping to get a good result in the culinary god competition. However, to deny all his years of hard work because of an insignificant flaw was unacceptable. The other contestants watched as Ma Tiancheng was taken away. They did not gloat, only anxiety and nervousness. After all, they might be eliminated like him in the next second. After the 10 judges rinsed their mouths with water, they began to evaluate the other contestants. In the end, the highest score for the first few works was 76 points. "This is a bit too much," Jun Changshao said. He could smell the food made by the contestants through his spiritual sense. The taste was very good, but none of them met the passing standard. At this rate, more than 100 contestants would be eliminated. Humans were not saints. How could they not make mistakes? Being harsh because of a small flaw, or being harsh on purpose, would seem unreasonable. Tang Ren said, Jun Patriarch did not watch the last culinary god competition. The main judge did not have much money. After the first round of evaluation, only a few people advanced. No way. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. If only a few people advanced this time, it would be the same as entering the finals. The system said, the author should not exaggerate the word count. The taste is a bit salty. Failure. This flour peeled from a radish is very bad. It lowered the overall beauty of the dish. Failure. The taste is not bad. The knife skills are okay, but it looks older than me. A failure of failures. The corners of the martial artists' mouths twitched. If the taste was not right, it was normal to be eliminated. If the knife skills were bad, it was normal to be eliminated. However, if the person was eliminated because of his age, how could cooking be based on appearance? Of course. With the same culinary skills, one was a dish made by a peerless beauty, and the other was a dish made by a muscular man. Which one would you choose? Anyway, I chose the second option because of her looks. Eliminated. Eliminated. None of the top 20 contestants got 80 points. They were all eliminated. Naturally, they couldn't accept it. When they were pulled down, they all shouted, "There's a conspiracy. There must be a conspiracy." I thought that half of the 120 people in the first round would make it to the next round. Now, it seems that it would be very good if 20 people could make it to the next round. More than 20. I think it's probably in the single digits. Could it be that this group of judges came from the heavens and are all otherworldly? What the audience couldn't stand the most was that the judges would throw the dishes into the trash can after determining that they were unqualified. Even if there was a small flaw in the dish, they shouldn't waste it like this. He's asking for a beating. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the audience seat, almost couldn't help but fly over and rub the 10 fellows who were wasting food on the ground. Oh my God! An advertising maniac actually dared to say that someone was asking for a beating. Was there still any law? Was there any justice in this world? In the continuous evaluation, a contestant finally got 81 points and successfully made it to the second round. The number of eliminated people had reached 40. Such a terrifying elimination rate was simply outrageous. At the same time, it also showed that the God of Cookery competition was very strict. It was worthy of being called the continent's greatest culinary event. Not bad, not bad. When it was Lin Yao's turn, the 10 judges nodded and praised him. In the end, they gave him the highest score so far, 91 points. Next, a few more contestants made it to the second round. The audience also realized that those who made it to the second round were all disciples of the previous God of Cookery competition. Those who didn't have a strong background were indeed used as stepping stones. It was not that they suspected that there was a conspiracy behind the competition. It was just that the champions were all capable. Naturally, their disciples were also capable. The evaluation was still going on. After the 100 contestants' dishes were tested, only 8 people made it to the next round. The disciple of the god of cookery will definitely have no problem. If the other contestants are eliminated, they won't be able to make it to the next round. The girl named Lu Wancher should have no problem, right? Everyone was looking forward to it. Fail, 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 the 10 judges continued to evaluate. More than 10 contestants were eliminated. Little guy. An old man with the demeanor of an immortal walked up to Qian Songbao and said with a smile, "The dish you made should be a special beef brisket. The god of cookery once made it, and I had the honor of tasting it. I wonder how much of his legacy you have inherited." Several other judges also walked over. They didn't taste it immediately. Instead, they evaluated the color of the dish and nodded their heads in affirmation. "Everyone, please." The old man picked up a piece of beef with his chopsticks and put it into his mouth. He was overjoyed and said, "This is the taste." As expected of the successor of the god of cookery. The other judges praised him with rich expressions after tasting it. When they raised their scoreboards, all of them had 10 points. Qian Songbao's special beef brisket gets full marks. Huang Jinzan announced loudly. "Oh my god. The judges are so strict, but they gave him full marks. It's unbelievable." The audience in front of the TV widened their eyes. "He's really capable," Jun Changshao said. From the change in Qian Songbao's eyes when he touched the kitchen utensils, he realized that this kid definitely had some skills. To be able to get full marks in the first round proved that his eyes were very sharp. System, was this guy praising others or praising himself? There are more and more sect members, and Dudu's workload has increased a lot. If we can pull this kid over and make him the number 2 golden chef, it's not bad. Jun Changxiao's eyes gradually lit up. Qian Songbao suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He said to himself, ominous premonition. Little girl. After the 10 judges rinsed their mouths, they stopped in front of Lu Wancher and said with a smile, "This dish is?" "Mapo tofu," Lu Wancher said. "Oh." Everyone looked at each other. Obviously, they had never heard of such a dish in the Falling Star continent. "What's the specialty?" The old man with the demeanor of an immortal smiled. Other than Qian Songbao, he had a serious face when facing the other contestants. Facing Lu Wancher, he was so amiable. He also thought highly of this girl. "This," Lu Wancher scratched her head and said, "it's mainly spicy and numb. Can you open the lid?" "Yes." The old man waved his hand lightly, and a natural spiritual energy spread out. The lid flew up on its own and landed on the table. At this moment, the projection array in the sky also zoomed in. A plate of Sichuan mapo tofu appeared on the screen. It was red and white in color, with some green onion sprouts as decoration. The specialty of mapo tofu is that it's numb, spicy, hot, and salty. Jun Changshao crossed his arms and said, "This girl used a clay pot to store it because she was afraid that it would get cold after a long time. The dish is not bad." The 10 judges nodded their heads in agreement. "Everyone, please." The old man was just about to eat when Lu Wancher reminded him, "It's best to prepare more water, because it's a little spicy." Hee hee. One of the judges smiled and said, "When it comes to food, I'm always happy if it's spicy." He picked up a piece of tofu with his chopsticks and touched it. He obviously felt that it was very elastic, so he praised, "It's really surprising that it's still so elastic after being preserved until now." He put it in his mouth and chewed. The other judges either used chopsticks or spoons to evaluate. Everyone stared at it without blinking. Soon, through the camera, they saw that their faces were all flushed red, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. The judges who were happy if it wasn't spicy had already closed their eyes. It was as if they were at the mouth of a volcano. Their whole body and even their internal organs were experiencing the heat. So spicy, so numb. Ha ha, schwa. Without caring about anything else, they picked up the water used to rinse their mouths and drank it. They even felt that if they didn't quickly get rid of the spicy taste, their whole body would burn. The other judges also picked up the water bottle and drank it in a panic. After drinking it all, they still felt that it was extremely spicy. Shui 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 shui. Chapter 821. The 10 judges were like 10 fire-breathing dragons, looking for water to drink. The audience's eyes were wide open. Was mapo tofu really that spicy? Spicy. Super spicy. Not only was it spicy, but it was also spicy. Of course, it was undeniable that the tofu was very smooth and bouncy, which shocked the judges greatly. So, when the spiciness in their mouths gradually dissipated, the 10 judges were not stingy with their comments. Huang Jinzan announced, Lu Wansher's mapo tofu also got full marks. Full marks again. Everyone was surprised. The culinary god competition had been held for so many years, and there were very few dishes that got full marks. It was unbelievable that there were 2 full marks in the first round. Girl. The old man who liked spicy food wiped his tears and said, Your dish is the spiciest and most special I have ever eaten. To be able to make tofu to such a degree, it's really amazing. The old man commented. Hearing the praises of the judges, many people realized that Lu Wansher's dish was no doubt better because her ingredient was only tofu, while the culinary god's disciple used beef. Meat dishes were often the most impactful, and many contestants liked meat as their main ingredient. Cooking with tofu was inherently inferior, and it was impossible to get full marks in front of the picky judges without strength. Thank you. Lu Wansher smiled brightly. Since the start of the competition, she had been nervous, worried that she would not be able to get a good result. With the announcement of the score, she was completely relieved. The culinary god's disciple did not seem that scary. The first round has ended. Contestants who have advanced, please rest for 15 minutes before returning to the stove for the. Because of the number of contestants, the rules have been changed. The finals will be held directly, and the top 3 will be decided based on the score, Huang Jinzan announced. As expected. Jun Changshao broke down. The finals. More than 100 contestants went straight to the finals in the second round. The pace was simply too fast. I wonder what kind of delicacies the next 10 contestants will bring. Sigh, I can only watch but not eat. I'm so hungry. The audience could only drool at the 10 kinds of promotion works presented on the projection array light screen. Miss Lu Xian Songbao, who was resting on the sidelines, said seriously, the champion will be decided in the next round. I will definitely work hard. He definitely recognized the girl's culinary skills, but at the same time, it also stimulated his competitive spirit. Not for the sake of returning home and inheriting the estate, not for the sake of defending Shizhuan's honor, but for the sake of not admitting defeat. Lu Wansher ignored him and closed her eyes to rest. Jun Changshao, who was sitting on the spectator stand, also had a grave expression on his face. The final round would determine the ranking. If the disciple couldn't get into the top 3, the mission would be considered a failure. Lass. Jun Changshao said telepathically, the chef uniform you're wearing represents the glory of ancestor Yiyin. You must not disappoint his spirit in heaven. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, he could only use words to motivate his disciples. The effect was not bad. Lu Wansher opened her eyes and said with a firm gaze, disciple will not disgrace the ancestors, and will not disgrace the sect. 15 minutes later, the finals began. There were only 10 stoves left in the arena. The contestants chose one after another. Lu Wansher also chose a corner closest to the edge. Although she seemed to be very low-key, when she walked up, the camera automatically gave her a close-up. When they first met in Qingyang City, the lass was only 12 years old. Now that more than 3 years had passed, not only did she grow taller, but she also became more beautiful. What a cute girl. Not only is she beautiful, but her cooking is also superb. Whoever marries her in the future is really lucky. Everyone was whispering. Jun Changshao leaned on the back of his chair and thought to himself, I can let this last debut in the center position. Yi Xingchen was a celebrity in the sect of all times. If there were a few more, there would be no problem. The rules of the finals are also to let the contestants perform freely. The one with the highest score will be the champion, and the second and third place will be the second and third place respectively, Huang Jinfan said. Because it was the finals, the contestants looked serious and treated it as a life-and-death battle. The finals of the 50th God of Cookery tournament begins now. Huang Jinfan announced loudly. Huff. Huff. As the announcement ended, the contestants summoned their flames one after another. From their serious eyes, it was obvious that they had entered the strongest cooking state. Qian Songbao, who was not giving it his all, frowned. He began to carefully choose the ingredients and chose a chicken and a fish. One of the judges said in surprise, "This kid is going to cook the dragon and phoenix bringing prosperity. Not only are we lucky, but we can also see the auspicious signs with our own eyes." Someone laughed. When the contestants who were choosing their ingredients saw the ingredients Qian Songbao chose, their faces all crumbled. During the culinary arts tournament, this god of cookery's disciple had already cooked the dragon and phoenix bringing prosperity, which caused a heavenly anomaly. It was still widely spread. Now that he was going to cook it again, it would definitely make everyone feel pressured. No. Qian Songbao raised his head and smiled at the judges. The dish I am going to cook next is called Dancing Dragon and Phoenix. Although the main ingredient is also chicken and fish, the cooking method and taste are different from Dancing Dragon and Phoenix bringing prosperity. Dancing Dragon and Phoenix bringing prosperity? The 10 judges had never heard of this dish, but it did not stop them from looking forward to it. Lu Wancher, who was sitting in the corner, also made her decision. She chose a piece of meat and used a kitchen knife to cut it into a 1 centimeter square. Red braised meat? Jun Changshao asked. As one of the top 10 famous dishes in China, red braised meat could be said to be the most common dish. However, Lu Wancher had improved on the cooking method. The main ingredient was also replaced with more chewy vicious beast meat. Whoosh! The stove god's flame rose again. Because it was controlled well, it did not burst out with pressure to intimidate the flames of the other contestants. The final round was going on intensely and excitedly. All the contestants were cooking seriously. Even Qian Songbao did not dare to slack off. The most troublesome thing was, this guy had set up 2 stoves. One was stewing chicken, and the other was steaming fish. He stood in the middle area and opened his palms. The purple hidden flame kept pouring in. Sometimes it was big, sometimes it was small. Swoosh! 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 The knife flashed, and pieces of supplementary ingredients fell into the pot. This kid's knife skills are not bad, Jun Changshao said to himself. The other contestants did not care about Qian Songbao. Instead, they focused on cooking their own food. Time slowly passed, the fragrance of several dishes spread from the ring and floated in the spectator stands. It immediately stirred the taste buds and saliva of the martial artists present. Swoosh! At that moment, Qian Songbao waved his hands. The pot on his right flew up on its own. The purple hidden flame spewed out and burned in the air. The flame was as strong as the breath of a divine dragon. Swoosh! The pot on his left flew up as well. It kept spinning around the other pot. There was a flame behind it, like a dancing phoenix. Jun Changshao took out a cigar and said, "What a fancy one." Swoosh! Swoosh! About a few minutes later, the 2 pots landed on the table. Although there were lids covering them, one could clearly see the heat seeping out through the gaps. "Look at the sky!" someone exclaimed. Jun Changshao, who was about to light his cigar, looked up. He saw golden and red auspicious clouds appear in the sky. They then gathered together and finally formed a dancing dragon and phoenix. Fuck! Cooking can really create a natural phenomenon. The scene of dragons and phoenixes appearing in his field of vision shocked Jun Changshao so much that he opened his mouth. He did not even notice that the cigar had fallen to the ground. When the 10 judges saw this, they stood up excitedly. No matter how many times they had seen this kind of natural phenomenon caused by cooking, it was still awe-inspiring. Looking at the judges' excited eyes, Jun Changshao said pessimistically, "This girl wants to win this year's God of Cookery tournament. I'm afraid it will be very difficult." Whoosh! Whoosh! Right at this moment, winds and clouds suddenly surged in the eastern sky and gradually gathered together, facing off against the dancing dragons and phoenixes. This, Jun Changshao's eyes widened. He immediately looked below the clouds and saw Lu Wanshi releasing the stove lord's fire, wrapping the pot together. Hot air billowed out and continued to extend upwards. Oh my God! That girl's cooking also created a phenomenon. It's changing, changing. Jun Changshao hurriedly looked up and saw the rolling clouds gradually changing shape. Finally, it stopped at a line of words. The content was the strongest sect of all ages. In the sect with the plaque, the strongest sect of all ages, all the disciples cheered loudly for the natural phenomenon caused by Lu Wanshi. Ah! 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 Li Fei and Tian Qi were so excited that they roared loudly. Their faces were red from all the roaring. Su Xiaoma, who was at the back mountain of Taixuan Xingzong, saw the words on the inner courtyard's light screen. An undetectable sense of pride appeared between his brows. Jun Changshao sat down and picked up the cigar on the ground. He then lowered his head and lit it. He took a deep puff and blew out a smoke ring. He smiled and said, "Girl, you're so considerate." A natural phenomenon caused by the gathering of the strongest sect of all ages was definitely more powerful than a fancy advertisement. That was because all the martial artists in the continent were looking at the light screen. They were all looking at the 5 words floating in the sky. City Lord Han said sincerely, "I'm convinced." His disciple used her cooking skills to create a phenomenon and did not forget to advertise for the sect. This show made his head explode. Chapter 822. The phenomenon caused by Lu Wanshi's cooking was definitely not as flashy as Qian Songbao's. After all, the dancing dragons and phoenixes were truly spectacular. However, the 5 words that were gathered together had a strong advertising effect on the camera. Awesome! The phenomenon can even turn into words. Calling their own sect the strongest, how arrogant. Everyone had a lot of controversy about this forceful advertising. However, regardless of whether it was good or bad, at least the world would remember it. He did not purposely teach Lu Wanshi. It was her sudden inspiration that made Jun Changshao very pleased. The system said, "You've all been led astray." Under Gosheng's influence, a little girl from another world's thoughts began to be liberated and became active. The 2 contestants caused a phenomenon while cooking, and the shock it brought was very strong. Everyone was also thinking, who would be the champion? If Lu Wanshi did not do this, many people would have thought that it would be Qian Songbao, because the dragon and phoenix phenomenon was definitely the biggest bonus point. Indeed. When the phenomenon first appeared, the 10 judges were very optimistic about the food god's disciple. In their opinion, only a delicacy that had reached the pinnacle could cause a phenomenon. It was definitely not a simple embroidery. Even Jun Changshao, who was always confident, could not help but be a little worried that his disciple would lose to Qian Songbao. However, when Lu Wanshi caused a phenomenon and formed 5 words floating in the sky, the gap between the two was directly closed. The most miserable ones were the remaining 8 contestants. At this moment, despair gradually appeared in their eyes, and they realized that the ending was just a side race. A delicacy that caused a phenomenon was destined to reach the realm of perfection. How could they muster the courage to compete with it? Huff huff. Huff huff huff. The two phenomena occupied the east and west respectively, and did not dissipate for a long time. It was as if they had turned into two ancient fierce beasts that were fighting, vowing to determine the winner. Amazing! Qian Songbao praised. The phenomenon he caused was with the help of the chicken and fish, and the scene formed looked like a dancing dragon and a dancing phoenix. This girl gathered 5 words on purpose, and it was definitely not unchanging. Of course. Qian Songbao would not feel inferior because his phenomenon was better in terms of momentum. Therefore, the winner could only be decided after the judges tasted it. Half an hour later. The other 8 contestants finished cooking. When the staff of the organizing committee took away their dishes, they were all dejected. The appearance of the two phenomena in the sky affected them greatly. It was inevitable that some accidents would occur during the cooking process, so the food they made was not perfect. Let's invite the 10 judges to evaluate. Huang Jinzan said in a clear voice. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately aroused the passion of all the martial artists of the continent. After all, the next judging segment would directly determine who the champion belonged to. Please. The 10 judges walked down the judging platform one after another and stopped in front of Qian Songbao without even looking at the other 8 works. Regardless of whether the 8 contestants' dishes were perfect or not, they were all ignored because they were destined to only serve as a foil in front of the works that caused the phenomenon. AI. Lin Yao sighed. He was also one of the contestants who had won the championship, second only to Qian Songbao. However, when it came to the finals, the judges didn't even look at his work. It was really a blow to his spirit. Young man. It's not that you aren't outstanding enough, it's just that you have 2 monsters. The sage-like old man looked at the chicken and fish on the table and said, "Is this 1 dish or 2? 1. Qian Songbao waved one hand and spiritual energy burst out. The 2 dishes suddenly spun and then flew up and were placed upside down on the prepared big plate. From the perspective of the camera, the complete fish was in an's shape with chopped chicken decorating it, forming a Tai Chi pattern. Sizzle, Qian Songbao waved his hand and took out the pot on the stove. He poured the hot oil in the pot, and steam rose together with a fragrance. Whoosh! The dragon and phoenix phenomena in the sky suddenly merged and chased each other in a cycle, corresponding to the dishes on the plate. Qian Songbao waved his hand and said, "My dragon and phoenix dance is ready. Please taste it." The 10 judges were stunned. Obviously, they didn't expect this kid to finish the last step of the process only now. However, after the hot oil was poured, the fragrance rushed to their faces. With just a sniff, they felt refreshed. The smell alone is enough to make one salivate. The fragrance didn't only exist in the arena but also spread to the audience. All the audience who smelled it felt intoxicated and salivated unconsciously. This is definitely a delicacy in the world. I'm willing to use a few years of my life in exchange for a taste. A few years is too little. At least a few decades. The taste of Qian Songbao's dragon and phoenix dance could no longer be measured with money. Instead, it could be exchanged with lifespan. The audience couldn't wait to rush over and kick the 10 judges out so that they could taste it themselves. Jun Changshao also smelled the extremely impactful fragrance and said to himself, "He's indeed a strong opponent." Whoosh! The Purple King, who was sitting next to him, was drooling. His eyes glowed, and he couldn't wait to tear his clothes off. "Don't embarrass me," Jun Changshao reminded him. Patriarch Yao Menjing said, "The dishes this person makes are so fragrant. She and the Purple King were used to eating Lu Wanchu's dishes, so eating other people's dishes was like chewing wax. However, Qian Songbao's dragon and phoenix dance could affect their appetite, which meant that he was really strong. Everyone. The sage-like old man cupped his hands and said proudly, "Let's try it. Please. Please." Although everyone was polite, their bodies had already betrayed them. They hurriedly picked up their chopsticks to pick up fish or chicken pieces. Some even picked up a spoon to taste the fish soup and chicken soup. The audience from all over the world could only watch. The 10 judges tasted it together. When the delicacies entered their mouths, their bodies suddenly trembled slightly. They immediately closed their eyes, and an ethereal expression appeared on their faces. At that moment, their souls seemed to fly out and merge with the phenomenon in the sky, dancing along with the dragon and phoenix. They are dancing. Through the screen, the martial artists from all over the continent saw the 10 judges dancing in circles together, corresponding to the phenomenon in the sky. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. How delicious was this to make them put down their noble statuses and do such an embarrassing thing. They danced for a while. The 10 judges' souls returned to their bodies. When they realized that they couldn't help but jump, their old faces instantly turned red. Everyone. Huang Jinfan said, "Give them points. 10 points. 10 points." The 10 judges raised their scoreboards one after another, all showing 10 points. As expected, it's still a full score. The audience was not surprised by this result. After all, just the phenomenon alone was a very high bonus point. If the disciples of the sect of all times also get a full score, will it be a tie? You don't say, it's really possible. Just as everyone was guessing, the 10 judges came in front of Lu Wanchu. The sage-like old man asked, "Girl, what is this dish of yours?" Lu-style red braised pork, Lu Wanchu said. The dish was learned from the Chinese cookbook, but the cooking method and ingredients had been modified, so it could be considered an innovation from her own reference. "Can you open the lid?" Swoosh! Lu Wanchu waved her hand, and the lid flew out. 10 pieces of red braised pork of just the right size appeared and melted in the rich gravy. "It looks very ordinary," the sage-like old man said. Judging from the appearance of the dish, Lu-style red braised pork was definitely not as fancy as the flying dragon and dancing phoenix. However, since Lu Wanchu had gotten a full score before, the judges did not look down on her. They first rinsed their mouths with water, then picked up a piece of red braised pork with their chopsticks and gently put it into their mouths. The taste was fragrant and rich. With a light bite, some gravy flowed out from the meat layer and filled every taste buds. It was fat but not greasy, soft and delicious. Jun Changxiao watched without blinking. Seeing that the 10 judges did not have any changes in their expressions, his heart suddenly jumped to his throat. Shouldn't they immediately explode on the spot? Shouldn't they immediately entangle themselves to the ends of the world? Or, with Qian Songbao in front of them, they had developed an immunity to Lu Wanchu's food? This was not good. Judging from the current situation, the judges liked Qian Songbao and Lu Wanchu very much. The other contestants had been excluded, so no matter the result, they could at least get second place and meet the requirements of the epic mission. However, Jun Changxiao, who pursued exceeding the requirements, was not satisfied with second place. He hoped that his disciple could get first place. From the judge's reaction, it was obviously not as strong as Qian Songbao's. This meant that the red braised pork did not touch the deepest level of the soul. Munch, munch. The sagely old man and the others chewed with relish, then swallowed it into their stomachs. They subconsciously picked up their chopsticks to pick up another piece, only to find that there was only gravy left on the plate. Lu Wanchu had cut many pieces, but only strictly chose 10 pieces, so each person could only eat 1 piece. Sigh. The old man shook his head and said, "I still want more." The judge, who was not happy without spicy food, said, "Although this Lu's red braised pork did not shock the soul, it aroused my appetite and made me feel what it means to not be full." So, he paused, raised his points card and said, "Give 10 points. Food is the most important thing for people, but the original intention is to fill the stomach. Although this dish is simple, it allowed me to find the most basic definition of food." A judge raised his card. The others raised their cards one after another, showing 10 points. Huang Jinzhan announced loudly, "Lu Wanshir's red braised pork with Lu's is also full marks." As expected. Both of them got full marks. Is this a tie? It's still considered as winning at the same time. Everyone started to discuss. Huang Jinzhan was also in a difficult position. After all, in the previous Culinary God Tournament finals, there had never been a situation where two people had the same number of points. How should the champion be distributed? "Master Huang," the sagely old man said, "why don't the two of them have another round?" Huang Jinzhan thought for a while and said, "That's the only way." "Master Huang." At this moment, Jun Changshao, who was sitting on the spectator stand, said, "What if the two of them still get full marks?" The system broke down and said, "Force an extra round." This. Huang Jinzhan said. Jun Changshao said, "Jun has a suggestion. Why don't the two contestants each cook a big pot of food, and the audience will give the corresponding score after tasting it? 10 people can have the same score, but 100, 1,000, or 10,000 people may not have the same score. The slightest difference will determine the winner." Everyone. Jun Changshao said loudly, "What do you think?" Agreed. Agreed. Jun Patriarch's suggestion is not bad. Let us be the judges and score the contestants. It's fair and just. No one objected because they really wanted to taste the food made by the two contestants who got full marks in 2 rounds. They wanted to see how delicious it was. "Master Huang, we're willing to taste it. Master Huang, we're willing to be the judges for free." The audience shouted loudly, and their voices became louder and louder. This made Huang Jinzhan frown. After all, there was no precedent for non-professionals to be the judges. "Master Huang." At this moment, Castellan Han's loud voice sounded in the venue, "This is the public opinion. Why don't you go along with it?" As the Castellan of the imperial city, he was very intimidating. Huang Jinzhan, who had been hesitating, suddenly had an idea and announced loudly, "If that's the case, then let's have another round. The public will be the judges to decide who's better." Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and transmitted his voice, "Castellan Han, thank you." Chapter 823. Lu Wanshi and Qian Songbao's dishes both got full marks. It was hard to tell who was better, so the organizers decided to add another round. The other 8 contestants were disqualified. They didn't even go to evaluate their dishes. Actually, it didn't matter whether they were evaluated or not. In the eyes of these culinary geniuses, as long as they didn't get first place, the second and third places were meaningless. Sigh. They shook their heads and walked off the stage. They turned to look at Lu Wanshi and Qian Songbao. There was despair and helplessness in their eyes. Their culinary skills might not be bad, but they ended up meeting 2 monsters. The organizers' staff removed the 8 stoves. Since they were going to make a big pot of rice, the stoves were modified. 2 big pots were placed on top. There were at least 100,000 martial artists who came to watch the competition. Even if each person ate a mouthful, it would take a lot. Therefore, after a short discussion with the other organizers, they decided to choose 5,000 people to try the food. Most of these people came from the imperial city. They were either the upper echelons of their families or famous wandering cultivators. More importantly, it had nothing to do with the 2 contestants. Done. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair with a smile on his face. He took the initiative to speak, not to steal the show, but for Lu Wanshi to win the championship. In terms of culinary skills, Qian Songbao wasn't weak. If this competition continued, there would be no meaning. Therefore, Jun Changshao wanted to make a big pot of rice to let the public decide who the champion would be. The audience was very supportive. Why should the delicious food be decided by the 10 of them and not by everyone else? It's a trap, the system said. Lu Wanshi had been making big pot of rice in the sect of all times for many years. She was absolutely proficient in this aspect. The host was shameless to let the two compete like this. What was even more shameless was, he secretly sent a message to City Lord Han to force the organizers to accept his suggestion. In order to let his disciple win, he was really unscrupulous. Patriarch. Lu Wanshi sent a message, this isn't good. She could see that the patriarch was intentionally letting her have the advantage to win the competition. However, this was a bit unfair. Girl. Jun Changshao said, food is the most important thing for the people. This person represents the people and not a small portion of people. Therefore, the true value of food is to share it with the people. The last 4 words were so righteous that even he himself was moved. Lu Wanshi was silent. Jun Changshao continued to enlighten him. A true master chef's dish can only be considered a success if it is recognized by the public. A few people can't represent everyone. The system said, you really know how to bullshit. I understand. Lu Wanshi's gaze became firm. It was undeniable that Jun Changshao had used a trick to give his disciples the greatest advantage. However, what he said just now was not reasonable. Food was the most important thing to the people, and whether the food was delicious or not was up to the people to decide. A big pot of vegetables. Qian Songbao stroked his chin and said, it seems very interesting. He had learned a lot of skills from the culinary god, but he hadn't cooked many times. Now that he had to cook for 5,000 people, it was undoubtedly very challenging. The rules of the tiebreaker are as follows, contestants are free to do as they please. Huang Jinzan announced loudly, make food for 5,000 people in 4 hours. After public evaluation, the one with the highest total will be the champion of this year's competition. Competition, now, let's begin. Shua. Shua. Lu Wanshi walked to the stove on the right first. There were many ingredients placed nearby. After all, she had to make food for 5,000 people. Qian Songbao also walked up. After seeing the huge amount of ingredients, he broke down and said, so many. He swore that this was the first time he had seen so many ingredients since he started learning how to cook. From another point of view, Qian Songbao was just making stir-fry. Suddenly asking him to cook with a big pot of vegetables, although it was challenging, it was also very difficult. Lu Wanshi said, if you feel that you can't do it, we can change the competition method. Although the patriarch was right about food being the most important thing to the people, she really didn't want to use her advantage to bully the other party. However, Lu Wanshi had neglected a very important issue. No man, even if he was only 12 or 13 years old, was allowed to be questioned. No. I can do it. Qian Songbao said seriously. All right. Lu Wanshi didn't say anything else. She waved her hand and took out a bag of flour. She poured it all on the table and began to stir with water. Noodles. Jun Changshao was stunned. This little girl's strength in cooking with a big pot of vegetables was undoubtedly fried rice. Noodles were still very rare. Shua. Shua. Lu Wanshi stood in front of the chopping board. Her small hands swayed left and right, stirring evenly. The whole process could be described as smooth as flowing water. Qian Songbao looked sideways, and admiration rose in his heart. You can ask him to cook, but he definitely can't make noodles like this. A moment later. When the dough came out, Lu Wancher grabbed the left and right ends of the dough and slammed it on the chopping board. She then began to pull it repeatedly. Jun Changshao suddenly realized, ramen. As one of the Chinese delicacies, ramen had a very wide popularity. The famous ones were Lanzhou ramen, Hunan ramen, and Dragon Whisker ramen. Japanese ramen was also passed down from China. Ramen was affordable and had a unique flavor. Lu Wancher's choice to make this one was undoubtedly very suitable for the public to judge. Pa! Pa! Under repeated pulling, the dough gradually separated. Sometimes it was like a silver snake dancing wildly. After it was stretched, it was like a stormy sea under the shaking. When Lu Wancher finished the last buckle, she placed one end of the noodles on the table and pulled the other end over her head. Her fingers kept shaking, and the silky noodles suddenly poured down like a waterfall. This scene was transmitted to the falling star continent through the virtual screen. It immediately brought a strong visual impact to the audience. Amazing! Qian Songbao, who was closest to her, was stunned. Lu Wancher's repeated movements continued until strands of noodle appeared. She was simply like a fairy dancing gracefully. It could be said to be extremely beautiful and would cause others to slap the table in praise. Lin Yao, who was extremely excellent in knife skills, said with admiration, "I'm not as good as her." He was able to slash more than 100 times in an instant and turn the ingredients into fine threads only because of his spiritual energy. On the other hand, the girl in the arena had relied on her hands and exquisite finger skills. It was impossible for her to do that without going through a lot of practice. At that moment, the eliminated contestants were all convinced by Lu Wancher's craftsmanship. Jun Changshao said in surprise, "I didn't expect Duda to have such a unique skill." There were ramen tutorials in the Chinese cookbook, but no one personally demonstrated it. Yet, she could figure it out by herself and make it to such an extreme. Her culinary skills were really unparalleled. Suddenly, Jun Changshao frowned. After the girl pulled the noodles, she began to cut the vegetables and put a lot of supplementary materials. He wondered, is this ramen? Shua! Shua! Lu Wancher put a few beef bones in a big pot. After adding all kinds of seasonings, she used the stove to heat up the soup. Because of the time, it only took half an hour. Then, she cut the noodles into pieces and put them in batches. After boiling for a while, she took them out and put them in clear water to cool. This is, Jun Changshao suddenly realized, she's going to make fried noodles. As expected. She cleaned the pot and poured oil into it. After the pot was hot, she added the prepared supplementary materials and noodles and skillfully stir-fried them with a big spoon. If she wanted to make food for 5,000 people, even if it was just one mouthful per person, it would still require a lot of food. However, when Lu Wancher was busy, it gave people a feeling of ease. There were tens of thousands of people in the sect. She prepared 3 meals a day, so it was natural for her to make a big pot of rice. Qian Songbao, who was standing at the side, was dumbfounded. It was not impossible for him to stir-fry noodles, but it was impossible for him to stir-fry so much at once. After all, without long-term experience, it was difficult to reach Lu Wancher's level. No. Qian Songbao said, "I have to work hard." Shua. He retracted his gaze and adjusted his state of mind. Then, he took out more than 10 pounds of high-quality beef and began to cut it with a kitchen knife, preparing to make a big pot of flavored beef brisket. However, all kinds of materials were prepared and he began to stir-fry. As the pot was too big and there were too many ingredients, he was a little flustered. The culinary god's disciple is a little weak. This is normal. After all, in terms of identity, this person is considered delicate. It's okay to make a small stir-fry on normal days, but to suddenly make a big pot of rice, he definitely can't control it accurately. Therefore, such a person is destined to be a high-end chef. Those who can afford to eat his dishes are also rich people. As for the disciples of the sect of all times, they are more suitable for people like us. Regardless of whether the food was good or bad, the audience was more inclined towards Lu Wanshi. After all, there were not many rich people in the world. Most of them were ordinary people. To make the food fancy and impeccable, they were destined to not be qualified to taste it. It was better to spend a few coins and eat a bowl of clear soup noodles at a stall. Schwa! Schwa! Qian Songbao tried his best to stir-fry, but because there were too many ingredients, it was difficult to finish them all. Beads of sweat gradually appeared on his forehead. This was in stark contrast to the calm Lu Wanshi beside him. The 10 judges were whispering to each other. If it was just from stir-frying alone, they were also inclined towards Lu Wanshi. After all, it was really commendable to do such a large amount of work so easily. However, the final champion would be decided by the taste. After a while, Lu Wanshi's first pot of stir-fried noodles was done. Then, she placed it in a basin, added oil, and stir-fried. After repeating this several times, a few large bowls of stir-fried noodles were done and arranged on the table. From the beginning to the end, she was always calm. After all, she had been preparing 3 meals for her fellow disciples day after day. She had long been used to it. This girl had contributed a lot to the sect. Therefore, after Li Qingyang, she was given the second title of one of the 24 meritorious officials of the Lingyan Pavilion by Jun Changshao. She received the kitchen seal and had the kitchen god fire. The golden stir-fried noodles were placed on the table, looking dazzling under the sun. The audience's appetite was greatly stimulated. They could not wait to rush over and try it. Who? After waiting for a while, Qian Songbao finally finished his work. He stir-fried a large bowl of beef brisket. However, he was so tired that he was sweating profusely. It was as if he was going to collapse at any time. Let's invite the 5,000 judges to enter in order. After tasting the food, we will give a score. Huang Jinzun shouted loudly. Schwa! Schwa! Before the judges entered the arena in order, they first began to taste Qian Songbao's beef brisket. After eating it, their expressions were blank. All of them were infatuated and exclaimed in unison, "It's really too delicious, 10 points. 10 points." Many martial artists with noble statuses from large clans gave the highest score and were recorded by the staff, 8 points. Suddenly, a discordant voice was heard. The one who gave 8 points was actually the old man with the demeanor of an immortal. He shook his head and said, "This taste is still a bit lacking compared to the beef brisket just now." Not bad. The other 9 judges nodded. They also gave 8 to 9 points. No one gave 10 points. Qian Songbao smiled bitterly. If it was just a small portion of beef brisket, he could ensure the quality and quantity. But to make such a big pot, it was already very good that he did not fail. Naturally, he could not grasp the taste perfectly. After the final calculation, Qian Songbao's big pot of beef brisket had a total of 50,084 points. Excluding the 10 judges who were picky with their mouths, the 5,000 judges all gave 10 points. This also meant that even if it was his first time making a big pot dish, this food god's disciple had real skills. The 5,000 judges all gave full marks. This is really too awesome. The martial artists from various cities were all amazed. After eating the beef brisket, everyone gathered in front of a few big pots of golden fried noodles. Then, they took a plate and scooped it up. Lu Wanshi's dish was huge in quantity. Therefore, many people subconsciously scooped more. It was not like the beef brisket, where they could only judge a small portion. Oh my God! This is even better. Many judges ate the fried noodles. Their expressions immediately became rich. Especially the noodles, which were smooth and refreshing. It felt good to bite it in the mouth. The 10 judges also showed satisfied expressions after tasting it. Then, they tried the fried noodles in other pots. In the end, they praised, the rice fried in batches can still taste the same. It's really commendable. Full marks. Full marks. The public and professional judges all gave marks. The final total was 50 out of 100 points. After seeing the final score, Jun Changshao sat down and put the extinguished cigar back in his mouth. He lit it up and took a puff. I said it before. Absolutely crushing. There's no suspense. The system collapsed. You've already stepped on it. Don't you find it dirty to pick up a cigarette butt? I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm proud. Actually, at the start, I considered dumplings, egg fried rice, and cross the bridge rice noodles. But my Chinese cuisine has been passed down for a long time. It is broad and profound. There are too many things that can be written. Even if it's just a small place eating sesame seed cake, it's not something a universe country can compare to. Chapter 824. Overtime ended. Lu Wanchert defeated Qian Songbao with full marks. In fact, the result was already decided after Jun Changxiao's trick. After all, no one was better than Southwest Yangzhou. Of course. Qian Songbao's ability could not be denied. After all, the score difference was not big, and he did not lose to the public. He lost to the professional judges who were even more picky. The winner of the 50th God of Cookery competition, Huang Jinzan, announced loudly, Lu Wancher. Junior sister is mighty. Senior sister is mighty. The disciples of the sect of all times roared loudly. Miss Lu, congratulations. Qian Songbao walked over to congratulate her. In fact, when he saw the process of making fried noodles, he knew that he would lose without a doubt, so he could still accept it. Lu Wancher smiled and said, "You're very good too." He got full marks because he had to prepare 3 meals for his fellow disciples every day. He had never done it before. To be recognized by 5,000 people, he definitely had the ability. This point. Jun Changxiao could not deny it either. In terms of cooking skills, Qian Songbao was not inferior to Lu Wancher. Whoever won the God of Cookery competition deserved the title. However, in order to complete the epic mission and obtain a higher reward, he could only use tricks. Can I try it? Qian Songbao looked at the remaining fried noodles, his eyes shining. He was a chef and a foodie. Now that the competition was over, he could shed his chef identity and become a real foodie. Huang Jinzan said, "Sure." The little guy walked to the dining table, picked up the fried noodles with his chopsticks, and put it into his mouth. As he chewed, he remembered the scene of him being saved and eating fried rice, and tears fell unconsciously. "Dad!" Qian Songbao put down his chopsticks and choked. "I don't want to go home and inherit the family fortune." When he came, Qian Budwa made a promise with his son. If he could not win the God of Cookery competition, he would obediently come back and listen to the arrangements. Qian Songbao yearned for an unrestrained life and did not want to be imprisoned in a cage, following the path his father paved. However, if he could not win the God of Cookery competition, he was destined to listen to the arrangements, go home and inherit the family fortune, obediently being a rich second generation. How many people dreamed of it, and he actually despised it. Lu Wancher smiled. "You can join the sect of all times. I'll teach you how to make fried rice and fried noodles." Seeing that the little girl had taken the initiative to recruit talents for the sect, Jun Changxiao's face was filled with a gratified smile. Qian Songbao fell into a struggle. Clearly, he was already tempted. After a moment of consideration, he said with difficulty, "I'm a very lazy person. I don't like to cook in a big pot. Can I go over and eat alone?" Pure eating. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes. "My sect of all times doesn't raise idlers, nor do we raise foodies." Lu Wancher looked at Jun Changxiao and said, I think the patriarch should be happy. Happy my ass. Although Jun Changshao was on the verge of a mental breakdown, after thinking about it, this guy was a rich second generation after all. It wouldn't be a bad idea to recruit him. What's more, didn't Peppa the wild boar, who was as lazy as she was, become hardworking under his training? Jun Changshao said telepathically, "Little girl, tell him that I'll allow him to join the sect of all times as an exception. However, the entry fee may be a little expensive." Pure eating was fine, but he had to pay. Oh. Lu Wanshi relayed the patriarch's words. Xian Songbao smiled and said, "As long as I can eat Miss Lu's cooking every day, the entry fee is not a problem." Seeing that he was so straightforward, Jun Changshao decided and said, "I'll definitely take this disciple." Under everyone's gaze, the champion of the 50th God of Cookery tournament, Lu Wanshi raised her big ear-shaped cup. Ha ha ha. Yi Tianxing, who was in the certification hall of the heavenly mandate imperial city, laughed out loud. The God of Cookery tournament had nothing to do with martial arts. However, if a disciple of the sect of all times won the championship, he could naturally show off in front of everyone. During this period, the sect of all times had done a lot of big things. He could choose any one of them to show off. So, during the meeting at the certification hall, which one should he choose? Sigh. It was so difficult to choose. Elder Zhou and Elder Zhen, who were standing behind him, breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this was the God of Cookery tournament. If it were a martial arts competition, the sect of all times would have won the championship, and the hall master would probably be paralyzed again. Ding! The host's disciple, Lu Wanshi, won the God of Cookery tournament and met the requirements. The epic quest is completed with a completion rate of 200%. The host receives 40,000 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 644-805-0000. Ding! Contribution points overflow. The moment Lu Wanshi raised the cup, Jun Changshao heard a pleasant notification sound in his ears. His soul seemed to float beyond the clouds. Ding! Detected that the host has completed the 7th epic quest. The reward for the 8th epic quest will be issued together with the completion of the 7th epic quest. When he floated to the highest point in the sky, he was suddenly hit by a stick, and his soul was directly knocked back into his body. Jun Changshao broke down in his heart and said, "This restriction is really fucked up." He had completed the quest, but because of another quest's restriction, he could not receive the reward. It was indeed very sad. Even more sad was that Sure 7's quest had met the requirements, but the time limit of the quest could only enter the settlement period after a year. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and said, "The road ahead is long. I will search from top to bottom." After the award ceremony, the God of Cookery tournament officially ended. All the martial artists left the venue, but the martial artists who were lucky enough to be the judges were still reminiscing about the fried noodles they had just eaten. To make noodles to such an extent, it is really amazing. If I can eat that girl's fried noodles every day, it will definitely be the happiest thing in the world. I have decided. I am going to register at the sect of all times. Many martial artists could not resist the temptation of delicious food and had the intention to register at the Azure Sun County. This was something that Jun Changshao did not expect. In his calculations, most of the people who came to register were because of the advertising effect. Jun Patriarch, are you in a hurry to leave after winning the championship? At the entrance of the City Lord Mansion, City Lord Han personally sent him off. Jun Changshao said, "The sect is busy. Jun has to hurry back." "All right." City Lord Han cupped his hands and said, "We will meet again if fate wills it." Jun Changshao smiled and said, "As long as City Lord Han prepares according to Jun's ideas, you will definitely make a lot of money in the next Dragon Tiger competition." City Lord Han said righteously, "Money is just a worldly possession. I have already accepted it. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. When you received the spirit stones, you were smiling more happily than me. Only a fool would believe that. Goodbye. Goodbye. Jun Changxiao brought Lu Wanshi, the Purple King, and Yao Menjing out of the imperial city. Although one of them was a Fey king and the other had a connate demonic body, nothing happened. They were just there to cheer. Qian Songbao did not follow them to southwest Yangzhou. Instead, he went home first to discuss with his father. He wanted to eat Lu Wanshi's food every day, but Jun Changxiao thought that the dining hall could set up another deputy hall master. This kid was qualified enough. Walking out of the imperial city, Lin Yao leaned against a tree on the road ahead. He had a saber at his waist. Although his face was young, it gave off a sense of vicissitudes. Jun Patriarch. Lin Yao turned around and cupped his hands. I, Lin Yao, am not a sect. I am a wandering cultivator. I want to join your sect. There were not many people who directly asked to join the sect. Can you endure hardships? Yes. Can you endure hardships? Yes. Can you shed your blood for the sect? Yes. Facing Jun Changxiao's series of questions, Lin Yao answered quickly and straightforwardly. His eyes were filled with sincerity. He clearly wanted to join the sect of all times and become a member. Follow me back to the sect of all times, Jun Changxiao said. Lin Yao cupped his hands. Thank you, Patriarch. Therefore, there was one more person in the group returning to the sect. On the way, Jun Changxiao calculated, this one can be in charge of cutting vegetables with Ma Yongning. Chapter 825. Although the culinary god competition had ended, the enlightened city Lord Han did not cancel the projection array. He continued to rely on the remaining recordings to bombard the audience. He even took on the advertisement alone and participated in the design. Although the playback effect was awkward, at least it had some effect. What proved that City Lord Han was enlightened was that he recorded the finals of the culinary god competition and played it repeatedly during the advertisement time. For some reason, the warriors who did not witness the competition could only watch the advertisement. City Lord Han was a person who treated money like dirt. His only hobby was spirit stones. Of course, the natural phenomenon of the culinary god competition and the only female contestant winning the championship were destined to become a hot topic in the falling star continent. In the past, no one cared about the sect of all times. Now, everyone was talking about it. This was the best proof of the increase in reputation. With the projection array, the entire continent could be said to have reached the point where everyone in the world did not know about him. When the crying children at night heard their parents say that Jun Patriarch was here, they would immediately pull their little faces and curl up in their blankets, not daring to make a sound. Was it that exaggerated? Yes. They had been on the road for half a day. Jun Changxiao led everyone into a city and chose to rest. Coincidentally, they met a crying child pestering his mother to buy candied haws. Little guy. Here. Jun Changxiao bent down and handed the candied haws over. He squinted his eyes, and his mouth formed a U shape, looking like a big brother next door. He dared to bombard the extreme cold palace for his disciple, and he dared to go against a first-rate and second-rate sect for a mineral vein. It was surprising that such a ruthless person had such a friendly expression. However, when the child saw his face, he hurriedly shrank behind his mother and trembled. Crack! The sound of a heart breaking came from inside his body. Jun Changxiao clutched his chest and said in pain, "Am I very scary?" Scary. Lu Wanshi and Yao Menjing said in unison. Sigh. Jun Changxiao took a bite of the candied haws and said, "In that case, from today onwards, I will be the great demon king." After saying that, he put the hood of his windbreaker on his head and put on a skull mask. He said eerily, "Little guy, are you afraid of me?" Ha ha ha. The trembling child was suddenly amused by him and laughed through his tears. Under the setting sun, Jun Changshao walked with his shoulders slumped, looking rather desolate. The path to becoming a great demon king was destined to be difficult. In the dead of night, Jun Changshao lay in the guest room of the inn and pulled open the advanced shopping center. The contribution points from completing the epic quest were overflowing, so they had to be eliminated within 24 hours. Ding! Host has spent 10,000 contribution points and obtained Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm X1. It has been transferred to the spatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 544-805-0000. Jun Changshao had long had the urge to buy this kind of martial technique that condensed the strength of the dragon elephant. It was only until today that he overflowed with a lot of contribution points that he truly took action. To put it bluntly, or was it because the external pressure was not great enough that he was stingy and unwilling to buy it? If a martial emperor-level enemy came and made a fuss about destroying the sect of all times, the contribution points would be spent very quickly. As for the remaining 4,480 points, Jun Changshao used them on the sect's infrastructure and the martial aptitude liquid. In fact, as the upper limit of the contribution points increased, in terms of overall expenditure, the investment in the sect's construction was more than personal use. Understood. After all, it was the strongest sect system, not the strongest Goxing system. Let's try cultivating it. Jun Changshao took out the dragon elephant Prajna Palm, and then began to flip through it. Immediately, the chants and intricate images appeared in his sea of consciousness. The next day, opening his eyes, he thought to himself, this kind of martial arts seems to be even stronger than the Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash. Nonsense. The system said, this is a high-rank shopping center martial skill. I can let disciples cultivate this kind of palm print. Jun Changshao said. The Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash was actually not bad, but its flaw was that it was only for men to cultivate. The Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm had no gender restrictions, so anyone could cultivate it. The more Dragon Elephant power one could condense, the stronger it would be. Exploding Fist, Mountain Splitting Palm, and Seal Shield belonged to the first generation of martial arts. Spirit Armor and Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash belonged to the second generation of martial arts. The Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm could be called the third generation of martial arts. As the level of the sect increased, the strength of the disciples would increase, and the martial arts would naturally change. Otherwise, how would they face stronger enemies in the future? Of course, there were also special martial arts that could always adapt to the changes of the times. For example, Self-Slash and 7 Profound Sunglow Break. The former's consumption was extremely low, and its power would increase as one's strength increased. It was very suitable for long-term cultivation. The latter was incomplete, but its potential was still very high. A few days later, Jun Changshao comprehended the first two parts of the Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm, stopped in the wilderness, and stood proudly with his hands behind his back. Lu Wanshi and Yao Menjing sat on a rock, each of them eating an apple. What is this brat doing? The Purple King muttered. Shwa! Jun Changshao suddenly opened his eyes, opened his right hand, and waved it in the air. Spirit energy gathered in his palm, forming a strong wind, and then smashed towards the huge rock in front of him. Hoo-hoo, the wind suddenly blew, and dust flew. The Purple King opened his eyes wide, because when Jun Changshao made his move, two illusions appeared in front of him. From the shape, they seemed to be dragon elephant beasts. Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm. Boom! The power of the dragon elephant gathered in his palm, and smashed fiercely on the huge rock. The whole ground suddenly shook. Everything quieted down. In front of Jun Changshao's area, the huge rock had disappeared, and a fan-shaped crater was blasted on the ground, and the surrounding ground had countless cracks. Wow! Lu Wanshi and Yao Menjing opened their small mouths, perfectly playing the role of surprised passers-by. The Purple King was shocked. Could this be a martial art from the upper realm? Shua! Jun Changshao retracted his palm, and thought to himself, gathering the power of one dragon elephant, the explosive power is not bad. If I gather 10 or 100 dragon elephant powers, wouldn't it be even more terrifying? The system said, that depends on whether the host has the ability to condense it. Jun Changshao was speechless. Although he gathered the power of one dragon elephant, it was still a beginner. In terms of overall power, it was still slightly inferior to the Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash. As long as he gathered more dragon elephant powers, the power would be reflected. The Purple King was still in shock. The martial art that Jun Changshao used just now, although the momentum was weak, judging from the phenomenon, it was definitely not ordinary. He even had the illusion that he was looking at a top powerhouse from the upper realm using some magical powers. The mortal world definitely doesn't have this kind of martial art. It must be from the upper realm. This guy is really not simple. When he said that he wanted to join hands with me to do something big, it might not be just casual talk. The Purple King's imagination ran wild. At this point, the imaginary trio was officially confirmed and officially debuted. The members were Yi Xingqian, He Wudi, and the Purple King. Comprehend, comprehend. On the way back to the sect, Jun Changshao continued to study this profound palm technique. However, after a few days, he still stopped at one dragon elephant power, and could not comprehend the second one no matter what. The dragon elephant Prajna palm inherited the usual style of the Shang city's martial arts, easy to learn but hard to master. After the initial contact and understanding, he could gather a dragon elephant power. If he wanted to evolve more, he would have to rely on talent and time. The kind of scene where the sky was full of dragon elephants, and people only cared about counting and forgot about the battle, was ultimately just a beautiful dream. Chapter 826. Patriarch is back. Junior sister Lu is back. In the sect of all times, Li Fei shouted at the top of his voice. The disciples who were cultivating rushed out to welcome her warmly. Qingyang. As soon as he sat down in the main hall, Jun Changshao ordered, "This is the new disciple. Go and make arrangements for him." Yes. Li Qingyang took Lin Yao to the inner courtyard. Elder Jiang. Jun Changshao said, "Did anything happen while I was away?" Yes. Jiang Ye said, Du Nan, who is in charge of cleaning the inner courtyard, found a modified multi-purpose vacuum cleaner that can suck some dirty things. Oh. Jun Changxiao's eyes were filled with surprise. This was a daily necklace that he bought when he respawned mid-level beast pills. When he went to the Imperial City, he gave it to Du Nan to clean the fallen leaves and dust in the martial arts practice field. Call him here. Yes. Not long after, Du Nan walked into the main hall. This guy's previously elegant hair had been shaved off. He was now a monk. It was not intentional. It was mainly because he was kicked out when he came to the sect to catch evil cultivators. It would take time for his head to grow back, so he simply shaved it off. Don't talk about it. After shaving his head, Du Nan's understanding of Buddhism had increased a lot. He was a typical bald man, but he also became stronger. Jun Changshao asked, "The vacuum cleaner can suck dirty things?" "Yes, Patriarch." Du Nan said, "After my observation and research, this thing can not only absorb dust and debris, but also evil energy." It was a coincidence. One day, he took the vacuum cleaner to clean the martial arts practice field in the inner courtyard. Mo Shang happened to be cultivating and releasing evil energy. As a result, the energy was forcibly absorbed. Jun Changshao said, "Call him here to demonstrate." Not long after, Mo Shang walked over. However, his head was surprisingly shiny. Jun Changshao said in surprise, "Have you also seen through the mortal world and become a monk?" Patriarch. Du Nan said, senior brother Mo's hair was sucked away by the vacuum cleaner. Mentioning this matter, Mo Shang's tears were about to fall. She had gone to the inner yard to cultivate early in the morning, but as soon as she released her demonic aura, her energy was sucked away uncontrollably. Unable to stabilize her body, she fell straight to the sucking mouth, and her head was sucked into it. Fortunately, Du Nan turned it off in time. Otherwise, his scalp would have been sucked in. After hearing this, Jun Changshao got up and walked down. He patted Mo Shang's shoulder and said, "You've suffered, puhaha. Ha 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 patriarch." In the practice field, Mo Shang broke down and said, "Better not take the test. Cut the crap." Jun Changshao held the magically modified vacuum cleaner and said, "Hurry up and release your evil energy. I'll see how you suck it away." "All right." Mo Shang helplessly released the evil qi. Pa! Jun Changshao started up the vacuum cleaner, and a strong suction force suddenly burst out. The flat suction nozzle was placed on the ground, and the dust and stones were immediately sucked in. Right at this moment, a strange scene occurred. The demonic aura that had gathered outside Mo Shang's body suddenly flew over uncontrollably. "It can really absorb the demonic aura?" Jun Changshao said in surprise. Mo Shang was still on tenterhooks. He forced himself to stabilize his body and not send his head to the door automatically. However, he did not go over. The flat suction nozzle flew over by itself, and it was about to come into close contact with his head. Pa! Jun Changshao hurriedly closed it. The suction force suddenly dissipated, and Mo Shang was so shocked that he collapsed on the ground. Although the suction force of the flat suction nozzle was not terrifying, when it came into contact with his body, he could deeply feel that he was about to be sucked in. The absorption of the demonic aura in his body was a small matter, but losing his scalp was a big matter. "It's indeed magical." Jun Changxiao's eyes flickered with surprise. This kind of daily necklace that he bought casually could actually absorb the demonic aura. It was really beyond his imagination. "Qingyang," Jun Changxiao said, "release your psionic power." He also wanted to see if this thing had the ability to absorb the demonic aura of a normal martial cultivator. The result was very disappointing, because after Li Qingyang released his psionic power, he was not affected by the suction force. Even when the flat suction nozzle was placed on his face, there was only a slight suction force, and it could not tear away his skin and flesh. He called Yao Menjing over. After testing, the conclusion was that it could absorb the demonic aura that she released. "Understood." Jun Changxiao said, "The magic modified multi-purpose vacuum cleaner has no effect on normal martial cultivators. It only has an effect on evil and demonic cultivators. By the way." He held his chin and said, "If it's used to deal with the evil sects, wouldn't it be very effective?" This was effective. Not only could it be absorbed, it could also absorb those of a higher realm. "Old Ding," Jun Changxiao said, "come and release the demonic aura." After all, Mo Shang was only a martial king level evil cultivator. He needed to test a Wu Xing like the 5 ultimate evil saint. Ding Xingwang said proudly, "Patriarch, although this vacuum cleaner is a little strange, I'm afraid it won't be able to absorb my demonic aura." In the era where martial emperors did not appear, as an evil cultivator, Wu Sheng, he had the capital to look down on all heroes. "Try it." "All right then." Ding Xingwang stood in place, and a strong demonic aura suddenly erupted from his body. Compared to him, Mo Shang, who was half an evil cultivator, was simply an ant at the foot of a mountain. The corner of Du Nan's mouth twitched slightly. It turned out that this elder Ding was not only an evil cultivator, but also very terrifying. Where did he get the courage to sneak into the sect of all times? Pa! Jun Changxiao turned on the vacuum cleaner, and the suction force suddenly burst out. Although he felt the demonic aura and wanted to suck it over, he was still unable to do so. "Patriarch," Ding Xingwang said, it's useless to me. Jun Changshao raised his hand, placed it in front of the button on the handle, and said, switch to second gear. The magic-modified multi-purpose vacuum cleaner had a fan-like speed control function, which was divided into first, second, and third gears. Du Nan used the first gear because it was enough to suck in leaves and dust. Pa! The second gear was activated. Whoosh! In an instant, the flat suction mouth produced a strong suction force. Even if it kept a sufficient distance from the ground, the dust and leaves were immediately sucked in. Ding Xingwang's face changed slightly. At this moment, he had already felt that the demonic aura was being pulled by some kind of force, but it was still within a controllable range. Still not enough. Pa! The third gear was activated. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a stronger suction force was raised. Du Nan, Mo Shang, and the others could clearly see that the dust and leaves within more than 10 feet around Patriarch were all sucked in an instant. Ding Xingwang's face suddenly became solemn. The third gear's suction force burst out, and the demonic aura that gathered around him could not be suppressed at all. It was extending toward the flat suction mouth. Although he had been trying to restrain himself, he could only temporarily delay the flying time. The current scene was, the strong suction force burst out, pulling the demonic aura forcefully, and the two were getting closer and closer. How is it? Jun Changshao asked. Ding Xingwang's face was ugly as he said, I can still withstand it. Although he said so, he knew that if he did not quickly keep a sufficient distance, the demonic aura he released would definitely be sucked in. The third gear mode could make Wu Xing so embarrassed. It could be seen how terrifying the suction force was. Of course. It was just that Ding Xingwang allowed the vacuum cleaner to suck in this way. If it were an enemy, they would have left immediately, and it would be useless at that time. In that case, Jun Changshao said solemnly, we can only activate the enhanced mode. Pa! After that, he pressed the red button. Ding! The host has successfully activated the enhanced mode of the multifunctional vacuum cleaner, consuming 100 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 499,005,0000. Damn it! Jun Changshao collapsed. You're spending so much. Whoosh 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 whoosh. At the moment of collapse, the flat suction mouth suddenly burst out with a stronger and more terrifying suction force than before. He almost lost his grip and flew out directly. Ding Xingwang's face changed drastically, and the demonic aura he released immediately gushed out like a flood. He could not control it at all, and even his body could not control it. He staggered with a thump 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 sound, and finally, his head was nailed directly to the flat suction mouth. Not good. Jun Changshao exclaimed and hurriedly turned off the vacuum cleaner. However, although the suction force stopped in an instant, after Ding Xingwang separated from the flat suction mouth, his old and profound gray hair was all gone, and his head was shiny and shiny. Ah, my thick hair. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched, and he comforted him, old Ding, don't be sad. I will find a way to get you a bottle of Overlord shampoo. After using it, you should be able to grow out your hair in an instant. Chapter 827. The items in the system store were divided into God's modification and Magic's modification. The former had special effects, while the latter had functions. For example, the 8x enhanced mode would consume 5 contribution points to activate, allowing Jun Changshao to have the ability to self-aim, see through things, and eavesdrop. The magically modified vacuum cleaner also had an enhanced mode, which required 100 points to activate. There was a reason why it was expensive. After the enhanced mode was activated, the terrifying suction force caused Ding Xingwang to lose his resistance. Not only was the evil energy absorbed, even his gray hair was affected. Fortunately, the entire process happened in the blink of an eye, and it did not bring any pain to the patient. My hair. My hair. Ding Xingwang squatted on the ground, holding a large pile of gray hair that he took out from the dust collector. His entire person seemed to have aged a few hundred years in an instant. Beside him, Mo Shang raised his sleeve to wipe his tears. He could now deeply understand the pain in Elder Ding's heart, because he was also a victim. Actually, Jun Changshao comforted him, this is just 3,000 strands of worry, without it, there are no worries, it might not be a bad thing. Ding Xingwang silently took out a shiny razor, and said, let me help the patriarch push away the 3,000 strands of worry. No. Jun Changshao said in grief, as the head of a sect, I am destined to bear many troubles, how can I escape? Not to mention 3,000 strands of worry, even if it's 9,000 strands of worry, I still have to bear it. Ding Xingwang immediately rolled his eyes. He advised others to do the same thing, but when it came to himself, he immediately changed. Ding! 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 As night fell, Jun Changshao sat in the study room and started to quickly refresh the beginner's shopping mall. It was for nothing else, but to get some products that could help old Ding recover from his wounded heart. After testing during the day, the conclusion was: the magically modified vacuum cleaner was very effective against both evil and demonic cultivators, especially when the enhanced mode was activated. Even Wuxia was unable to withstand it. However, there was also a flaw. It could only absorb martial artists who released the evil energy and nearby targets. If the other party did not explode, or if the distance was very far, it would be useless. Moreover, the absorbed evil energy could only be temporarily sealed in the dust collector. Once it was opened, it would automatically return to the body of the absorber. It can be used for self-defense. At least the evil sect experts won't dare to get close. In the wilderness, cold and murderous, dozens of corrupt experts' eyes shone with ominous light. Jun Changshao carried the modified vacuum cleaner on his back, raised the mouth of the vacuum cleaner and shouted, "Come over here." This scene. How carefree, sand, and unrestrained, eagle. However, Jun Changshao retracted his fantasy and frowned, only I can activate the magically modified product function. Even if I give it to my disciples, it can only be adjusted to the third gear. The system said, Ding Xingwang said before that the third gear mode already made him feel pressured. That's true. Jun Changshao said, in the future, if we have to fight against even more powerful heretical schools, we can purchase a large number of modified vacuum cleaners and let our disciples equip them. They'll be more effective than divine weapons. The Falling Star continent focused on martial arts. However, if there was a convenient way to deal with the enemy, he would definitely not be stingy in using it. No one stipulated that martial arts must be used, and no one stipulated that firearms and multi-purpose vacuum cleaners could not be used. He, Jun Changshao, was destined to be a man who led the world astray. Right. A thought flashed through his mind. Can the magically modified vacuum cleaner absorb souls? The system said, the host has a good imagination. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, evil energy and demonic energy are considered unclean things. The soul race can also be classified as unclean by occupying other people's souls to control their bodies. The system said, if the host wants to confirm his guess, you can enter the soul race world and try it out yourself. Get lost. Jun Changshao said, I'm not that stupid. If he was not sure if it would work on the soul race, he would definitely not go to the soul race's world. Moreover, as far as the current situation was concerned, the enhanced mode could deal with the evil cultivator Wu Sheng. If it did not work on the overlord level, he would definitely be defeated if he went to other people's territory and met such a strong person. After I have enough strength and confidence, I will enter the soul race's world and fight. Jun Changshao said righteously, save the world from fire and water. The system said, if the soul race knows that they have been targeted by the shameless host, they will definitely hide in a corner and tremble. Ding! Jun Changshao refreshed the beginner's shop again, and his eyes lit up. Because, among the new products listed, there was a product called Super Hair Growth Agent. The effect was instant hair growth, and the price was only 50 contribution points. I'll buy it. Ding ha ha ha. The next day, Ding Xingwang sat in front of the bronze mirror in his room and looked at the lush hair that had grown overnight. He raised his head and laughed excitedly. Boom! Boom! In a dark world, there were a few burly figures. They had two creatures that looked like horns on their heads, and they were using their bodies to crazily crash into the spatial barrier. This was the other end of the sealed spatial passage. These creatures were the soul race. In their own world, they could condense their bodies, and their defensive strength was not inferior to the beast race. However, when they invaded other planes, they never advocated fighting with real weapons. Instead, they used the unique abilities of their race to gather their soul form and reside in the bodies of creatures. When they matured, they would devour them and obtain dominance. The overall strength of this race might not be very strong. However, once they transformed into soul form and resided in other races, they would borrow the other party's strength to strengthen themselves. 10,000 years ago, in the falling star continent, the 9 martial emperors were occupied, resulting in the War of the Martial Emperors and the collapse of the world. Fighting force with force. The soul race might not be able to defeat the falling star continent. However, the sinister part was that they could control the bodies of others and stab them in the back. In short, this race was insidious and cunning. Even if they could defeat their opponent, they would not fight openly. Damn it! A soul powerhouse repeatedly attacked the barrier but to no avail. He said angrily, there were clearly signs of loosening. Why is it suddenly harder than before? Could it be that the array masters of the falling star continent have strengthened the seal? The soul powerhouse next to him said. If that's the case, it'll be difficult for us to invade again. The third soul overlord has already awakened and sent an invasion signal. If we don't meet up with him, we'll definitely be punished. They were very anxious and were waiting online. However, regardless of whether they continued or joined forces to attack the barrier, they could not shake it. Moreover, from the frequency species, they could roughly infer that it would be difficult to break it if they did not attack it for 100 years. The lifespan of the soul race was very long. 100 years was just a snap of the fingers. However, the third soul overlord had awakened in the falling star continent and was waiting for them to coordinate with him. They could not afford to delay for even a day. Sigh. A soul powerhouse sighed and said, at this time, we can only hope that the third soul overlord can realize this problem and break the seal from inside the falling star continent. Otherwise, we won't be able to enter in a short time. The entire continent should be grateful to Jun Changshao. If he had not ordered Shengguan Xinyao to reinforce the defensive seal and hold on for hundreds of years, the cliché plot of an alien invasion would have been played out all over the falling star continent. Chapter 828. In a place with verdant hills and clear waters. Dai Lu, who was wearing a black robe, stood there quietly. The grassland green attribute appeared around his body and then spread to the nearby plants, absorbing all the spiritual energy in their bodies. Phew! After a while, he opened his eyes. He spat out a mouthful of turbid air and said, I've broken through to the 6th rank. Brother Green Scarf had worked very hard to become stronger and take revenge. However, compared to Jun Gua, who had the life of a main character, he was a tragedy. Kid. Soul said unhappily, it's impossible to break through to the Emperor realm just by absorbing plants and ferocious beasts. It's better to absorb martial artists of the same level as you. Dai Lu shook his head and said, what's the difference between you and an evil spirit if you kill innocent lives for revenge? Theoretically speaking, he had a grudge against Jun Changshao, so he could be considered a villain. However, he was definitely not an evil person, so he would definitely not do something heartless. In a world where martial arts are respected, the strong preys on the weak. Soul roared in disappointment, if you care so much about good and evil, you'll get yourself killed sooner or later. Don't say any more. Dai Lu said, I have my own plans. Soul fell silent. He thought that this fool was easy to trick, but he didn't expect him to be so principled. It seemed that it would take him a long time to devour and take him for himself. In the sect of all times. Jun Changshao sat in the drizzle hall and said, Why are you only a 6th rank martial king? Li Luoqiu curled her lips and said, I have to take care of the drizzle hall and the purchasing hall. How can I have time to cultivate? She broke through to the martial king realm by relying on martial king pills. She also broke through to the 6th rank by going to the life and death secret realm. Otherwise, she wouldn't have time to cultivate. She was at most 2nd or 3rd rank now. You've worked hard, Jun Changshao said. The 24 meritorious officials of the Lingyan Pavilion could only allow their disciples to enter. Otherwise, they would definitely consider letting this woman in. Li Luoqiu joked, You came to the drizzle hall just to ask about my cultivation level? Of course not. Jun Changshao asked, Did you find anything about the matter I asked you to investigate some time ago? As soon as they started talking about serious matters, Li Luoqiu became serious and said, I've already sent people to investigate. For the time being, there are no abnormalities. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, Could it be that the old man is fooling me? Inside the Shifeng fate-ending pagoda, the Array Emperor had once said, Perhaps it will take a very long time. Perhaps it has already arrived at the Starfall continent, occupied the human body, and is slowly growing. Jun Changshao did not seem to care about saving the world, but he still ordered the drizzle hall to find out if there were any supernatural incidents on the continent. The space-time passageway was sealed once more. It would not be a problem to stabilize it for a few hundred years, but he was afraid that the spiritas would sneak in ahead of time and reside in the human body. Combined with what the Array Emperor said, Jun Changshao roughly deduced. If the spiritas wanted to become stronger, they might absorb the psionic energy of humans. As long as they didn't destroy the corpses, there should be clues left behind. However, after a careful search by the drizzle hall, such a phenomenon did not occur. Thus, he could not help but wonder if he was being a little too cautious. It's best if there isn't. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and said, This way, the spiritas won't be able to kill us. We can only wait for ourselves to kill them. Patriarch. Ding Xingwang walked in. Jun Changshao and Li Luoqiu's eyes suddenly became dull. Because not only had old Ding's hair recovered, but it was also very long, so long that it coiled around his waist several times. What exactly did you give me? Ding Xingwang parted his dense hair, revealing an old face that was about to collapse. It's growing every day. How can I go out in the future? Cut it off. I cut it 8 times in 2 days, and it's getting longer and longer. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Other people wait until my hair reaches my waist, but you marry me. Ding Xingwang, on the other hand, waited until my hair coiled around my waist and held scissors every day. The main thing was that he used too much. After a few days of growth, it would return to normal. Patriarch. Du Nan smiled and said, Can you give me a bottle? Jun Changshao patted his shoulder, looked at his shiny head, and said, A Buddhist martial cultivator should look like a Buddhist martial cultivator. Come, lower your head. I'll give you a few scars. Forget it, I'll go clean up the inner court. Du Nan instantly disappeared. Patriarch. Elder Wei came to report, the new batch of medicinal herbs has matured. A smile appeared on Jun Changshao's face. They could refine more martial emperor pills, and the overall strength of the disciples would increase again. Patriarch. Li Luoqiu walked in and said, There's something I have to report to you. Speak. Jun Changshao said. Li Luoqiu said, the Drizzle Hall sent news that the palace master of Miaohua Palace left the sect and went to the southern desolate state. Why? Jun Changshao asked. Li Luoqiu said, Palace Master Shi was invited to Judu Palace. A fifth-rate evil sect. Yes. Jun Changshao wondered, Miaohua Palace is considered a righteous sect in Jianghu. Why would Palace Master Shi go to an evil sect? As far as I know. Li Luoqiu said, Shi Jingxian has a senior sister who is very powerful in Miaohua Palace. Later, she lost the competition for the position of Palace Master and left the sect with hatred. She joined Judu Palace in the southern desolate state. So. Jun Changshao said, the so-called invitation is actually a hongmen banquet? It's possible. Li Luoqiu said. In fact, if it was not very important, she would usually choose not to report it. However, Shi Jingxian and the patriarch had an unclear relationship, so she still reported it after hesitating. Only Palace Master Shi went alone. Zhangsen Fanghua and Leng Xingyue accompanied her. At the mention of Leng Xingyue, Elder Wei, who was sitting at the head of the table, became serious. Jun Changshao noticed it and said indifferently, Palace Master Shi has 2 peak martial kings accompanying her. There shouldn't be a problem. Although Judu Palace is only a fifth-rate sect, their poison techniques are the best in Jianghu. If they have any designs on Palace Master Shi, even peak martial kings may not be safe. Elder Wei said gravely. Elder Wei, what do you mean? Jun Changshao asked. Elder Wei said, at the peak of Mount Hua, Palace Master Miaohua did not hesitate to offend 2 third-rate evil sects to cheer for our sect of all times. Therefore, I think we should send someone to take a look. Jun Changshao said with a smile, Elder Wei is worried about his old lover. Elder Wei said with a puzzled expression, isn't the patriarch worried about Palace Master Shi? Jun Changshao said, Palace Master Shi and I are old friends. Since I know she's going to the hongmen banquet, I naturally can't ignore it. Elder Wei. Bring Elder Jiang to Judu Palace. Tell him that the sect of all times is visiting. Yes. Elder Wei hurriedly got up and flew to southern desolate state with Jiangya as fast as he could. On the way, he thought to himself, if Palace Master Shi is really in trouble, the patriarch will definitely be able to increase her favorability with him if he personally comes to save her. But he sent us here and just sat in the sect. This is really hopeless. Elder Wei was definitely a king in love. However, when faced with the bronze-level Jun Changshao, he could only cry out, I can't bring him along. Palace Master Shi. Jun Changshao stood outside the main hall and said, I hope nothing bad happens. He could have gone to southern desolate state himself, but after all, it was just a fifth-rate evil sect. Sending 2 emperors was already giving them a lot of face. Li Luoqiu muttered, if this disciple is in danger, the patriarch would probably be in a killing frenzy in southern desolate state right now. Suddenly, a report from a member came to his ears. Patriarch, a scout reported that in a dark forest in eastern Haozhou that few people have set foot in, all the vegetation within 5 kilometers has withered. There's no sign of life. Precise location. It's, Jun Changxiao's armored wings unfolded. With the support of flight, he turned into a streak of light and disappeared into the sky. Li Luoqiu shook her head speechlessly. He left a great beauty and didn't go to save her. He was quite proactive in this matter. As expected, the patriarch fell from a tree when he was young and had serious problems. Chapter 829. Jun Changshao rushed to the eastern Haozhou as quickly as possible and landed in a barren mountain forest. The trees and flowers in this area were all withered, and there was no sign of life at all. Occasionally, the wind would blow over, making it seem gloomy and eerie. Jun Changshao frowned. The system said, from the looks of it, it is very similar to what the Array Emperor said. Could it be that the soul race has made a comeback and attached themselves to the humans? That's a bit troublesome. Jun Changshao said solemnly. The soul race could not be underestimated after triggering a war between the emperors. If they were not found as soon as possible and allowed to continue developing, the consequences would definitely be unimaginable. The system said, didn't the host not care? When the nest is overturned, there will be no unbroken eggs. Jun Changshao said, when the soul race's momentum is complete, it will set off a storm of blood in the falling star continent. My sect of all times will definitely be affected. It is the fortune of the continent for the host to think this way. The system said. Jun Changshao squatted down, looked at the withered flowers, and muttered to himself, the Array Emperor said that the soul race can absorb the spirit energy of martial artists for their own use, why would they absorb the insignificant energy of plants? It's very simple. The system said, not strong enough. Jun Changshao stood up, looked around, and said, that's why we have to find the parasitic humans as soon as possible and kill the soul race. However, how to find it was a problem. Jun Changshao's brain worked quickly, and said, since it's not strong enough, it needs more energy to grow. As long as we pay more attention to remote areas, we should be able to find clues. Patriarch. The sound transmission of the Drizzle Hall's spies hundreds of miles away sounded in his ears. This disciple has discovered another withered area. Shua. Jun Changshao used his movement technique and arrived at the second scene in just a few minutes. Everything around him had their life force sucked away, and there was even a beast that was as thin as firewood. This is an adult spirit beast, it weighs at least 1,000 kilograms. The system said. Jun Changshao said, to be able to absorb the energy of the beasts, it seems that this soul race is not weak. One after another, spies discovered the withered scene. After investigating one by one, the final conclusion was that this person should be going to the Southeast Shu province. Jun Changshao flew into the Southeast Shu province, which he had never set foot in before. As a result, after searching for a whole day, he still could not find the scene of the withering. Thus, he wondered, could it be that it didn't come here? After returning to the sect, he ordered Li Luoqiu to quickly set up an intelligence network to cover the Southeast First Province. Yes. Hall Master Li immediately got busy. Batches of Drizzle Hall members riding speed-type ferocious beasts surged into the Southeast Province. As of now, the Sect of All Times' intelligence network was already very extensive, but there was still some time before it could be fully laid out. Jun Patriarch was definitely not in a hurry for things to develop normally. Now that the suspected Spiritas had appeared, he wanted nothing more than to control the entire world's intelligence. He wanted to have a sentry every 5 steps and a sentry every 10 steps. In fact, there was no need for him to take responsibility for such a matter that concerned the world. He could also tell the major forces and relevant departments. Since you can't trust others, you should investigate it yourself. Jun Changshao rubbed his temples. Then, he woke up early the next morning and led his disciples to the training field to do morning exercises happily. It was a big matter. It was not as important as dancing. Patriarch. Just as they finished dancing, Li Luoqiu hurried into the hall and said nervously, Elder Wei and Elder Jiang are trapped in 9 Poison Palace. What? Jun Changshao stood up immediately. A 5th-rate evil sect could trap 2 Wu Huangs. Li Luoqiu said, according to Elder Jiang's news, the 2 of them are poisoned and the antidote pills are ineffective. Although they can protect themselves, they can't save Palace Master Shi and the others. Whoosh! Before she could finish, Jun Changshao had already disappeared from the hall. As expected, just as Li Luoqiu said, if someone in the sect was in trouble, this guy would go faster than anyone else. Southern Desolate Province. There was a primitive forest with many poisonous creatures, such as scorpions, centipedes, spiders, etc., so it was called the 10,000 Poison Forest by the locals. 800 years ago. A martial artist who was proficient in poison entered and founded the 9-Poison Palace, famous for its 9 types of poison. There weren't many disciples in this sect, and it took them a few hundred years to reach the 5th rate. However, the poison arts that were impossible to guard against were feared by many large sections. Moreover, the most troublesome thing for martial artists was this evil sect had even set up a poisonous miasma in the forest. If they wanted to enter, they had to be prepared to resist the poison. Jun Changshao had the antidote pill and did not put the 9-Poison Palace in his eyes, so he sent Elder Wei and Jiangya over. In the end, the 2 of them went in, but they were also trapped in the palace. I was careless. When he arrived, Jun Changshao secretly said. The system said, the antidote pill can only cure 100 poisons. There are tens of thousands of poisons in the Falling Star continent, so you have to refresh the store and buy stronger antidote pill formulas. As expected of a qualified salesman, he would never forget to instigate the host to spend. Shua. Jun Changshao ignored him and sped up. 2 hours later, he arrived at the southern barren state's 1,000-poison forest from the northwest Yangzhou. Whoosh whoosh. A cold wind blew from inside, emitting a nauseating smell. At this time, any martial artist with experience in surviving in the wild could instantly realize that there must be a poisonous miasma in the forest. If they could not resolve it, they would definitely die. Ta! Jun Changshao walked in and stepped on the decaying leaves. Centipedes, spiders and other poisonous creatures quickly rushed out. However, before they could attack, they suddenly turned into ashes. After walking for about 2 to 3 miles, suddenly, a green python rushed out from the bushes and instantly wrapped around Jun Changshao. It opened its mouth and was about to swallow his head. But immediately after, a sense of danger rose in his heart. He was about to let go of the human and escape, but it was too late. His entire body was instantly burned to ashes under the high temperature. Whoosh whoosh. Jun Changxiao's body erupted with flames until they disappeared. Then, he continued to move forward and finally stopped in front of an area that looked like clouds and fog. This is miasma, it's highly poisonous. The system said. Let me try and see how poisonous it is. Jun Changxiao walked in, then opened his mouth and took a deep breath, only to see the billowing poisonous mist being absorbed into his body. If a martial artist saw this, his eyeballs would definitely pop out. In front of the miasma, who wouldn't think about how to avoid being affected by the poison? This guy actually took the initiative to absorb it, wasn't he afraid of dying immediately? About a moment later, Jun Changxiao absorbed a large amount of poison, his face alternating between green and red. It was obvious that the poison had gathered in his body. Whoosh! Suddenly, all kinds of flames erupted from his body, once again turning him into a walking flaming man. The poison in his body that was attacking everywhere was instantly evaporated into ashes. Puff! Jun Changxiao farted, the turbid air spurted out from below, and shook his head. With the body of holy flame, why would I be afraid of a mere poison? Puff! 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 As he walked, he farted. The surrounding miasma gradually faded, and a large group of buildings gradually appeared in front of him. On the stone tablet that was crawling with poisonous snakes and spiders, there were 3 blood-red words: 9 Poison Temple. To dare trap my sect of all times as people, there's no need for this sect to exist. Puff! The system finally couldn't help but roar, can you not expel the dissolved poison in the form of farting? Chapter 830. Elder Wei and Jiangya sat cross-legged in the 9 Venoms Temple, surrounded by a thick and strange fog. This was a poison cloud. One of the 9 great poisons of 9 Venoms Temple. Its toxicity was more than 10 times stronger than the miasma outside. When the poison cloud was first created, it was only effective against martial masters, but after generations of research, its toxicity became more and more intense. This was not. Wu Huang level Elder Wei and Jiangye were already poisoned. Although they could suppress the poison with their spiritual energy, they could not move recklessly, let alone unleash their cultivation. Otherwise, the poison would corrode faster. This was very embarrassing. Actually, the two of them were very cautious when they came to the forest of 1,000 poisons. However, there were too many poisons inside, and the antidote could only neutralize a portion of it, so they could not avoid it. Thousands of Nine Venoms Temple disciples gathered outside the poison cloud, but they did not rush over. After all, the two trapped were Wu Huang, and approaching them would be suicide. The current situation was, Elder Wei and Jiangye could temporarily resist the poison, and the Nine Venoms Temple disciples did not dare to attack. Both sides were in a stalemate. Both of you. A clear voice rang out, although my Nine Venoms Temple is only a fifth-rate sect, its poison techniques are the best in the world. How can you casually barge in? He was not bragging. The person who poisoned the two martial emperors must have some real ability. Actually, with Nine Venoms Temple's poison techniques, they might not be afraid of third-rate or fourth-rate sections. However, there were too few people who cultivated poison techniques, and they stayed in the forest of 1,000 poisons all year round, so they were only a fifth-rate sect. Many factions cared more about their sect's rank to show off their strength, but some were indifferent. They either lived in seclusion or stood aloof from worldly affairs. Palace Master Miao. Elder Wei suppressed the poison and said, "We are here on the orders of the Patriarch to visit your temple. We are not here to cause trouble." Miao Saifeng. The current Palace Master of Nine Venoms Temple, a femme fatale. Visit? Miao Saifeng said indifferently, "From what I see, you are here for Miaohua Palace, right?" Elder Wei did not deny it and said, "As far as I know, your Nine Venoms Temple has no grudges with Miaohua Palace. Why did you use the invitation as an excuse to trap Palace Master Shi in the palace?" Kakik. A bell-like laughter rang out. "Do our two palaces have any grudges that we need to repay your sect of all times? Or do you think that you can strut around and interfere with other sects just because you've won the Dragon Tiger tournament?" "Humph." Jiangye said calmly, "We have no intention of making things difficult for your palace. Do you think that the sect of all times is a pushover? If it wasn't for the fact that he had to suppress the poison cloud, with his strength at Wu Huang's level, he could absolutely beat up the Nine Poisons Temple. Palace Master Miao, my family's patriarch has a bad temper. You'd better hand over the antidote quickly and release Palace Master Shi. Otherwise, bear the consequences." Elder Wei said in a deep voice. "Ha!" Miao Saifeng laughed and said, "Wei Qingfeng, are you threatening me?" Elder Wei was stunned. "You know me. When he roamed the Jianhu, he always appeared as Old Wei or Weizi. The only people who knew his real name were, Wei Qingfeng. I'm afraid you've already forgotten." Miao Saifeng said in a cold voice, "Back then at Yearning Cliff, I made a promise to an inexperienced girl to hold her hand and grow old with her." Jiang Ye's mouth twitched. Making such a mushy promise was very much in line with Elder Wei's style. So, could it be that this Nine Poisons Temple was his, some ex-girlfriend? Yearning Cliff? Hold her hand and grow old with her. Elder Wei thought for a while and said in shock, "You're Cece." "Hee, I didn't expect you to remember her. You're not Cece. I can't even recognize your voice. Why would Mother miss you so much back then?" "Mother?" Elder Wei was stunned. "You're her daughter." Jiang Ye's expression became interesting. This Nine Poisons Temple Master was Elder Wei's ex-lover's daughter. From her words, she didn't seem friendly. It would be difficult to save Palace Master Shi. Wei Qingfeng. Miao Saifeng said in a cold voice, "If it wasn't for Mother repeatedly telling me not to look for a heartless man like you, you would have died 100 times by now. How dare you come to Nine Poisons Temple?" "Cece, she," Elder Wei trembled and said in a hoarse voice, "She's not anymore. His expression gradually became ferocious. This wasn't caused by the poison, but by the pain in his heart. Miao Saifeng scolded, "Scum like you don't deserve to call my mother's name." The thousands of disciples were stunned. They had never seen their palace master so angry before. Elder Wei lowered his head and said with a guilty expression, "Yes, I've let her down. My sin is unforgivable." Jiangye, who was sitting cross-legged at the side, broke down. "Elder Wei, with your rich love history, any one of them could be written into a book." Wei Qingfeng. Miao Saifeng said in a cold voice, "I promised mother that I wouldn't look for a heartless man like you in my lifetime. However, since I've taken the initiative to come to you today, I've chosen to barge into the Yellow Springs." "Child." Elder Wei struggled to raise his head. His eyes were red as he said, "Can you tell me how your mother passed away, because of a heartless man like you?" It wasn't hard to tell that Miao Saifeng was speaking through gritted teeth. Pfft. Elder Wei spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale. The poison cloud's poison couldn't break through his defenses. However, when he found out that the woman he once loved had died because of him, all his defenses collapsed. He raised his head and roared, "Ah!" His voice was filled with pain and regret. "Elder Wei." Jiangye hurriedly transmitted his voice to Elder Wei, "Don't mess up your mind." However, it was too late. Elder Wei's mind was already messed up because of Cici's death. The poison was madly invading his body, but the pain it brought was far from comparable to the pain he felt in his heart. "Brother Qingfeng, I came out from the southern barren state alone. Luckily, I met you and didn't get bullied by bad people. So, our fate is destined. Brother Qingfeng, Cici only has you in her heart. There is no room for other men. You must not let me down. If I let you down, I'm willing to accept. Don't say any more. Brother Qingfeng is going to make a big career. I can't help you. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for the day you succeed. When this matter is over, I'll hold your hand and grow old with you." At the bottom of the cliff, Wei Qingfeng, who was dressed in a long robe, turned and left, leaving behind the beauty who looked into the distance with tears in her eyes. This pair of perfect couple had been separated for hundreds of years. When they were mentioned again today, they were already separated by life and death. Elder Wei clutched his chest. His heart, chest, and even his entire body felt like it was being cut by knives. "Wei Qingfeng, stop pretending." Miao Jinfeng said coldly, "I know you very well. You are a heartless man who cheats on women everywhere. There are at least 80 women who have been ruined by you." Elder Wei's face was filled with pain as he muttered to himself, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I let you down, let's talk in hell." Whoosh! 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 In an instant, streaks of cold light shot over. Elder Wei, who was already in a state of mental breakdown, didn't notice them at all. Ding! 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 Dozens of poisonous needles hit Jiangye's spirit armor. He shouted, "Elder Wei, pull yourself together." As he moved, the poisonous gas quickly gained the upper hand and madly devoured his meridians. His expression became even more ferocious. "Humph." Miao Saifeng said coldly, "Let's not talk about my mother. Just by trespassing into the Nine Poisons Temple, the two of you will definitely die. Even if Jun Changshao comes personally, excuse me." Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Jiangye, who was forcefully suppressing the poison, heard this and was overjoyed. He said, "Patriarch." Ta. On the stone slab that led to the training field, Jun Changshao, who was dressed in white, walked over elegantly. He opened his folding fan and said, "I'm here. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.